Okay, thank you. Welcome back to Cast Your Cares podcast. My name is Rachel, if this is your first time listening. And I have such a special guest today. His name is Brother Joshua Wiley. He has a YouTube channel and a YouTube ministry, and he preaches and tells his testimony. And it's such an honor for him to be on my show today. So how are you doing, Brother Wiley?
Well, I'm good. Sis. It's definitely an honor and privilege to be on your show and to be here and to be able to share.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, so let's just jump right into it. Why don't you share a little bit of your background and where you're coming from?
Okay. Well, born and raised in Asheville, North Carolina. For the most part, I spent a lot of time in New Jersey, pretty much back and forth. My mother, she had me at a very young age, made a mistake like lots of us do, and so I learned a lot from my mom. She had me at 17. Was born on New Year's. You know, my grandmother had 8 kids, and when I was born, we were all in the same house together. A lot of my uncles and aunts. I would say a lot of my uncles sold dope, you know, well, I was very close to. They sold dope first time, you know, I wasn't unfamiliar with seeing drugs, things of that nature. But some of my aunties was actually on it and used. And so I spent a lot of time. I guess one of the easiest ways to raise and watch old Josh was to lock me in a room. And I often tell about this room whenever I tell about the story, because that's where I met God. So as life can have its downs, you know, what the devil intends for bad, God flips it and turns it into good. And I guess it makes a lot of sense, since the devil flips things and turn them into bad. God can take something bad and flip it and turn it into good. But one of my aunties especially used to lock me in this room, and my mom didn't know. Whenever I used to tell her, I noticed some people would think my mom knew. My mom didn't know, because I didn't live with my mom. She stayed around the corner, because like I said, she had me at a very young age. So I stayed with my grandmother for a large part.
So how young, if you don't mind me asking?
When I stayed with my grandmother, when they started.
No, how young did your mother have you?
She was 16 when she got pregnant.
Okay. Yeah, so she was still a kid.
Yeah, and actually, my mom was the good kid out the bunch, the 8 kids.
Really?
I would say she was good. I would say she was next to the oldest or the oldest. I would say next to the oldest. I'm not sure which one of those, but she had to wait for everybody else. So she was in a position of responsibility.
She was the example. She was supposed to be the example. Yeah.
And so, and what I'm about to tell you, I'll never forget. I used to sit. I'm gonna fast forward and rewind a lot of times, but I used to sit with my grandmother, and we used to drink together, even when I was a teenager. And my grandma was getting drunk one day, and me and her getting drunk together, and she told me, "I didn't find out you were coming until 3 weeks before you got here." Matter of fact, my cousin Christy, who's 3 weeks older than me, her birthday was just December 7th. And they went to the hospital for Christy to be born. The doctor said, "Your other daughter is pregnant too." And my grandma was like, "What?" So my mom hid the pregnancy because she didn't tell me. My grandma told me this. My mom kept this here from me for years, but she hid the pregnancy because, in a way, not only did she felt like back then it wasn't cool to be pregnant, especially at young age, but in a way, the Holy Spirit, she was afraid they would make her have an abortion also.
Okay. Yeah. So she was in the church?
Yeah. She just, matter of fact, her and my Aunt Yvette, they came into the church on their own. Like, we lived in, when they were teenagers, we lived in these projects called Walton Street Apartments, which was these big projects in Asheville, North Carolina. And they were actually they were 15 years old, reading the Bible on their own. And they came to commandments in Exodus. I guess my told my mom, "Hey, let's just read the Bible through." And when they got to the 10 Commandments, they were like, "Hold on, the 7th day is Saturday." And so actually, I don't know how they looked, but they found this one church in Asheville, North Carolina called Bethel. And that's the church I ended up going to for a large part of my life until until I moved to Tennessee. So my auntie were 15 and they started going to church on their own. No matter of fact, once they found out about the Sabbath and they were looking for churches who worshiped on Saturday, I believe I call him granddaddy, but he's not my blood granddaddy. Brother Stewart ended up knocking on their door doing in gathering. You know how they used to do in gathering back in the day. You have the cup, and he used to do whole meetings and seminars, and so he just so happened to knock on their door for a seminar. So it was, a matter of fact, it was a lady in that church who named me. Like my mom didn't name me. Yeah.
It's so important to have a church family then, right?
Yeah, definitely. You know, definitely. So this old woman in the church named me Joshua, and she reminded me a lot. She reminded me all the time, you know.
Yeah.
Her name is Betty Carter. Betty Carter named me, and my aunt Essie. Yeah.
Okay, like so one gave you the first name and one gave you the middle name, or how does that work?
Yeah, one gave me the first name, one gave me the middle name. It's like I said, nobody knew I was coming either, and I was born. And I ended up being born on New Year's. So I was old New Year's baby. Old New Year's baby.
Good. So that's a kind of an interesting start. Yeah. So share a little bit more.
And like I said, and so they would lock me in this room, and I never forget, we had 2 mattresses, the windows and the dressers, and I already knew I probably was just an energetic little kid, you know what I'm saying? That's one of the reasons why they locked me in a room. If you have people who high, especially now that I'm older and I see it firsthand, when you have people who want to just get high and kick back, they don't want to have to deal with certain kids. So sometimes they would forget to feed me, things of that nature in the room. And
how old were you?
When they started putting me in a room, I was 4 years old. I was 4 years old. And I used to fight. I used to see demons. And me and my mom were talking about this not too long ago. And I stress it again, my mom didn't know. And my mom really didn't find out till a few years ago when I told her. And we were talking about it the other day, and she still apologizes to this day. And I had to tell her, like 3 weeks ago, we were talking about it. And I said, Mom, no, don't apologize. Because once you see the things I learned and what the purpose was for it, I see it clear. So I was like, Mom, she's one of my best friends now. So I always make sure I stress and say that at the beginning, so people hear it and they're thinking, where was his mom at? You know, she was young and I wasn't living with her. But anyway, I'm sitting there, but I used to call them demons of hate. They were older women, big bone. They looked like older, but they had these angry faces. I told my mom they looked like the Aunt Your Mama. Remember the servant?
Yeah.
Yeah, and they had scarves, and they had these angry faces, and they would just try to touch me all the time. And I always tell this because this was key too. This is key in my life. And I would spend hours while I'm locked in this room boxing. You know, I was just spend hours throwing. And I had a spot, like I said, it was in this room. It was only 2 mattresses, a dresser, and my grandmother had a whole bunch of purses in her closet and a whole bunch of stuff in the closet. And I would just spend hours boxing and fighting these demons as they would try to touch me. And I made a little spot on this bed with the blankets and stuff where I would always, that was my safe haven. If I can get to that little spot, I will be good. And I did that for years. But that dresser, I used to use my fingernails. I would get so bored because they would lock me in there right when I got home. So oftentimes, and I would actually write stuff with my fingernails on that dresser. I would carve stuff in the wood, you know, chip away at the wood. And I never forget when one of the spots, my ice machine's going off in the background. But once I had no place to write with my fingernails on the dresser anymore, that was the first time I climbed off the window. And I remember sitting there because I would do the drawers, the front of the drawers. And I remember when the whole by this time, I was like 2 years had passed by this time. And I was sitting there and I looked to the side and something just said, that window is open. And so I was gone. I popped the window, jumped out, and I'm looking at the leaves that was on the ground because my heart was so happy. I remember like yesterday escaping out the window. I would disappear I would be gone for the whole day. It had to force me to come back home at times, and sometimes I wouldn't. Like I knew where my mom's apartment building was, so I would run around. And I hate calling them prostitutes, but everybody in the city, my family was well known, still are. Our last Wiley's, because it was so many of them. Like I say, it was my mom had 8 brothers and sisters, but like some of the prostitutes around the corner, I never knew they were that until I got older. They would always give me candies, sweets, see me, Josh, what are you doing? Go home. Or other cats would see me, little Wiley, what you doing out here? And I think they tell me, so I take off running again. But my mom lived around the corner from my grandmother. So whenever it get dark, there was certain, and this is in the cities with automatic locked doors. And this is back in the 80s, 70s. So I couldn't, at times I would go up and try to open the door to the apartment building, but it was automatic lock. I knew it, but I would check it anyway. I had a certain bushes on the side of a building that I would go to sleep at. I would cover myself with some leaves. I still be joking to the Lord about it sometimes. I would say my angel would make a little leaf blanket for me, but I think they got in trouble. I think somebody called them, people coming out the apartment building, you see a little boy curled up in the bushes, or when they would finally try to check on me at the house, they would open the door and see I was gone, things of that nature. And so, one day I'm coming home from school and I'm crunk. I'm excited because I know right when I get home, jumping out the window, gone. I get home, they're in there.
They did notice you were gone?
Yeah, I guess somebody was calling Child Protective Services, things of that nature. Or I don't know what made them start nailing down the windows. Either it was they checked and I was gone, or somebody from my mom's apartment building was like, your son keeps sleeping in the bushes. It says your son keeps sleeping in the bushes out here. So it did, my little escapes out the windows didn't last long. So I remember I'm coming home from school one day and I'm excited too. I'm like, yeah, right when they put me in the room, I'm gone. I had it even mapped out. I would wait a couple minutes, a little bit, then I would go. And I get there and they had one of my uncles, he has a hammer and some nails, and my grandmother's in there, and they're, yeah. And I remember just bawling. And this is the old school houses where the window is right here, and the window panes would be like almost a foot out, like the old school panes. And so I remember jumping up in the window pane and I'm bawling, I'm crying, because I know I'm gonna be locked in this room. I had already been in there for like a couple years. And so I'm sitting up on the window pane and I'm not even paying attention to them pointing and getting on me. And a North Carolina Blue Jay flies, and he's on the other side of the window. And I'm glancing at him, he's staring at me. And he's actually at the window where my uncle is nailing down. My uncle had got to the second window by now. And he's putting nails on the top of the window so I can't lift it up anymore. And the bird wasn't moving. And he was staring at me. And I kid you, he was baby blue. And that ended up that's my favorite club. If I take you in my living room, half the stuff, my clothes, is North Carolina baby blue, and it's for this purpose. But I'm sitting there and I notice he's staring at me. He hasn't moved. He hasn't flew away from the banging on the window. I don't know if they seen him, but my eyes was locked on him the whole time. Like, I don't even remember when they left. I don't remember nothing they said. I don't even remember when they left the room. All I know is I looked around, they were gone, and he was still on the other side of the window. So I jumped down. I remember I jumped down, and I tapped the window this time. I've been staring at the whole time. I hit the window. He still didn't move. He just kind of turned, looked at me, and I was so excited. It's like I had a friend for once. So I'm sitting there and big cheese, and I'm smiling. he's looking at me. I'm looking at him while I'm talking to you.
Yeah.
I actually have a family of North Carolina Blue Jays that live outside my kitchen window now in the tree that's in my backyard. But anyway, he's looking at me, and I never forget. Well, I looked away and did something, and I looked back and he was gone.
Mm.
And the blessing of that is it had twofold blessing. I knew even as a child, I want to say I was around, I was 7 then. Even as a child, I had a feeling, I knew that was God. I
Mm-hmm.
knew God. And the room was different from that point on. Like I actually, for the longest, I thought, I knew nobody loved me, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it was like I finally had a friend other than my cousin Christy,
Right.
Who was 3 weeks older than me.
Right.
I just talked to her the other day on her birthday. She used to actually come and sit on the other side of the door sometimes when they would lock me in there. Like if there was something special going on, like I never forget, like the American Music Awards was on one time. And this is back in the day, like this is early 80s, old school TV, and everybody's gathering around it. And they thought I was gonna mess it up, be loud, because I was energetic,
Mm-hmm.
be loud and all that. So immediately right before it stopped, Josh, go to the room. And I remember I'm bawling because I got to get to this locker room. And Christy, I never forgot, she sat there on the other side of the door with me the whole award show, because she's like, if Josh can't watch it, I don't want to watch it. But she would sometimes bring me food, things of that nature. So I love
That's
her to
sweet.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So now I'm actually coming home to this room looking forward to it. And I would spend hours sitting in that windowsill looking for that bird to come back,
Mm.
And I actually started telling, I used to say lying. I used to go to school and lie to my friends and
Mm-hmm.
be like, yo, God adopted me. God adopted me. You know what I'm saying? Just to feel like I had a family, even though I had a family, but I didn't. And I always tell this part too, because so, for about another year or two, I
Mm-hmm.
would sit in the room every day, but I would stare out the window. And sometimes I still would escape. Like I would, I would pull a jail free. I would knock on the door. I gotta use the bathroom. Somebody will open the door, let me out. I go in the bathroom. I jump out that window. And
So how bad, I don't want to say bad, but like how energetic were you? Like just like jumping off the walls, or was
no,
it
I say energetic, but honestly, they just didn't want to watch me because they was getting high on crack.
okay?
The, the
So
main
but you said I'm under the impression that there were other kids in the house.
just Christy.
Okay, okay. So I guess
And
she
she was
wasn't
wearing there. Like because she had her mom and her dad they lived in these other apartments called Erskine, these other projects
okay,
called Erskine. And
okay,
I love her grandma Mookie, who's passed away with her. But Christy wasn't there all the time,
okay, okay.
I was stuck, you know what I'm saying? Because it was just me and my mom and my grandma, so I was stuck. Christy had other family who
Mm-hmm.
stayed with me sometimes.
Okay, okay.
Like I said, it was when the crack era first hit. And,
Mm-hmm.
and my aunties who even the one who used to lock me in the room, a lot of them, they're clean, sober, they're nurses.
Yeah,
Nobody would ever imagine.
right,
Matter of fact, a lot of them don't speak to me because I do tell my testimony. And
right.
like me and my mom were talking 3 weeks ago. Yeah, that's why I love my mom. My mom said, it's your life. It's like they want me to hide and but I said, how can I? It made me me.
Right.
And which I'll get to is like, I say every day I deal with these things. Like there's not a day past that this isn't in the mind of Joshua. And
Mm-hmm.
which I'm gonna get to concerning the Bible. And so when I say energetic, sometimes I still just try to make excuses for people. That's me sometimes, you
Mm-hmm.
know, but I knew it was the fact they were getting high. And nobody wants to watch
Mm,
the kid when they're high on crack. You know what I'm saying?
right,
Things of that. And like I said, you wouldn't even, a lot of people meet my aunts today, they wouldn't have never imagine them being that way. Because they nice houses, nurses, make over 100K.
right. Mm-hmm. So
But
they're kind of ashamed.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And I actually almost fought a couple over it, and
Mm,
not them, them two and the younger, because they're like, Josh,
mm-hmm.
And I had it so much of this bottled up. And I go through time. I remember, like I say, for years now, I've been boxing in this room. These demons who I see in this room every night, they would come out after me like clockwork, wanting to touch me. So not only I'm dealing with that, but one time, but I could sing. My mom, for the Bethel Chorale, the church that we were going to, once my mom started changing her life, matter of fact, my mom said when she was born with me, when the whole time she was pregnant with me, they were recording an album that they still pass out to this day about the Bethel Chorale.
Yeah.
So I could sing as a little guy.
Sorry.
Right. No, you're fine. You're fine. That's my camera does that with my YouTube videos now too. And so, but so because my birthday is New Year's, usually people start school when they're 5 years old. So I started when I was 4. I started when I was 4 because I turned 5 during the year. But that first year, she started putting me in plays and musicals because I could sing. And so one time I'm like 8 years old now, still being locked in the room every day, things that people in
Still?
school, yeah, still. This
Wow.
room, it didn't. I'm gonna bring up when it stopped. I made it. I made them stop locking me in that room, and people at the school just had a feeling that Josh is bad. Like they didn't know what was going on at home. Like I really didn't tell nobody. I really didn't talk. Like it's funny if I tell people today because I teach and online on YouTube things. If I told people I rarely talk as a kid and a teenager, people are like, what? Are you kidding me? No way. And I'm like, yeah, that's why I have so much to say now. But I rarely spoke at all, but my temper was like with other little kids, like I've always with fighting. Like I say, I've been boxing with demons and things of that nature. So if I felt somebody was attacking me, I would fight them, and I already felt like people didn't love me at all, especially grown-ups. I never looked at kids like that. It was always grown-ups. And Christy, she actually kept me from looking at kids like that. Kids just got the blunt end of the fight, and actually started boxing. Like some of my uncles and them, because they was like, "Oh, he's naturally gifted." When they see how fast I was and how easy. So now every night since I was 4 years old, I'm punching at these demons who were trying to touch me. To my mind, they were trying to kill me. You know what I'm saying? But and to my mom's respect, I gotta say before I talk about this next part that happened, I watched my mom, and I never blamed her because I watched my mom walk. She didn't have a car, and like I say, she would come and check on me, and now that I'm older, I realized they would let me out the room because, like I say, my mom was next to the oldest. And they would let me out the room whenever my mom was around. They played it off pretty good. Or they'll say, Josh is in the room, we like being in that room. But I watched my mom walk to work and walk to school. Nursing school for years. I watched her do that, do certain things like that. And so I always saw strength in my mom, things of that nature. But I never forget this one time, this one musical, I'm sitting there and first I'll tell the musical. I'm sitting there and the musical was built around me. It was called SRO, Standing Room Only. And when I say it was built around me, I had 3 big solos because I could sing, had like a little Michael Jackson high pitched voice,
Yeah.
And so,
Wow.
and like I say, Miss King always took me under my wing throughout my whole elementary. I guess she was like one of the only teachers that I could actually sit and like the teachers caught the blunt end of what was going on at the house with Josh. If I didn't like him, I didn't listen to him, and it's still that way today with people. Period. So it was like I'm sitting there after the musical, and everybody's coming up to me. Oh, good job, parents, things of that nature. Good job, because like I say, I had 3 big3 big solos for the musical and things of that nature. And I didn't need a mic because I could sing loud because my voice protects me. But and I noticed, I'm sitting around and notice, and my aunt who used to lock me in the room, the main one who used to lock me in the room, who was on crack. I remember her being, and by this time, she was really bad on it. And she doesn't know to this day, I used to fight over her because she was a pretty woman, but the crack had took her down. And to have people in the neighborhood, yeah, I gave your aunt this amount of money and she did this. Like, it was like, nah, keep that to yourself next time.
Yeah.
People started to after they could see our pops. But anyway, that's why I said it was funny how throwing punches at them demons actually, it worked out. It taught me how to box, which really came in handy in different levels of my life, of walks of life that I went in. But anyway, I saw her when I noticed I'm sitting around. First, I'm standing around and I'm seeing all my friends with their families.
Right.
And I'm by myself. And I see her and I'm thinking, okay, at least I got somebody here to see me. And I guess because she was, by this time, the crack had her real bad.
Yeah.
She was, and I'm looking at her in my head. She was dirty, hair nappy, things of that nature. And she had left. She was ashamed. She didn't want to come over there near me because I had so many people around me from the school and parents. And so that was it. And I'm bawling, I'm crying in the hallway. And I didn't realize it. And I guess some of the other parents went and told Miss King. Miss King, she came and grabbed me. She said, I'm gonna take you home, Joshua. And I'll never forget, we're sitting in her truck and I live my grandma's house was right around the corner from the school. And I'm like, Miss King, can I live with you? You know? And she told me no. And I remember I got mad at her because I thought she loved me. In my head, as a child, I got mad at her. But when I'm older, I'm like, she couldn't just say yeah and then come. But she didn't ask me what was going on at home either. But anyway, so I got upset, and this is ironic. I often joke about this too. There was nobody at my grandmother's house. She still dropped me off. But I love Miss King, so I hate even telling that part. But as I'm older, the house was pitch black. I go in anyway. I was used to being in blackness from being locked in the room for all them years. So I go straight, and it's ironic. I go straight to the cell that they used to put me in. So I head straight to the room. There's nobody at the house. I'm by myself. I just come from this high performing. Everybody, hey, Josh. But then I'm broken.
You go back to the reality. You would go back to your sad reality. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll never forget. I went and I remember I told you it only had 2 mattresses in the dresser. And I remember I went and I sat on the mattress, and I was like, God, I hate everybody. And I told somebody, it was 2 things happened that day. That's when I realized I was alone. And that's when I used to say my heart died that day. But not even just to show, not even 4 years later, I ended up going to prison for putting a shotgun in somebody's mouth. So just to show you the transition, when I say my heart died, my heart really did. You know what I'm saying? Like, my heart died that day. And so, but I want to rewind. I always wanted to tell that part of when I realized I was alone, but I have to rewind. Before my mom got her apartment by herself, I think this was, like I say, this is when I used to watch my mom walk to school and walk to work. And then she moved and got her apartment around the corner. And because she had to work long hours and go to school, I still stayed with my grandma. And but when my mom still lived with me, I think I was either 4 or 5. I want to say I was 5. Me, my mom, and my uncle, there was a certain mattress. If you've been in a house where there's 8 to 12 people, you pull out mattresses from all over the place. But me and my mom and my uncle used to sleep on this one mattress. And this is key to, as you say. But I'm laying there, and I used to sleep in the middle. And my uncle's right here, I'm right here, my mom on the other end. And I'm laying, and I see this demon that looks different from the others. She looked like she was pale white, and her skin looked like cigarette ash, that if you touched it, it would just crumble. And she's standing in the room, and she's staring at me, and she's draped head to toe in blood, head to toe. Looked like somebody just spilled it on her. She streaked in it, just streaked in it, all on her gown. And she didn't walk. Her gown made a perfect circle on the floor because I'm still just laying there and I'm looking at everything. Made a perfect circle on the floor, and it's like she just glided and she glid over to the side of the bed, like where, and my uncle's right here and I'm right here, and I'm looking at her. And it always tripped me out that I wasn't afraid, but I was more in shock. And she had a fire, like there was literally fire in her eye. I never forgot because we were locking eyes. The minute I saw her gliding over to me, oh yeah, and before I say she glid over to me, she was standing right here. There was the kitchen door right here because we were in the dining room right before the kitchen. And my grandmother had one of those iron, the skillets that's like this thick.
Right.
As a kid, you had to use 2 hands just to pick it up.
Yeah.
That iron skillet was floating. And I tell this part for later on, but she's right here. There's a door, and then there's an iron skillet just on the other side of the door. My grandma's iron skillet. So then she glides over to me, and she leans down over my uncle. She's staring at me, and like I say, she has fire in her eyes, and her eyes are locked. And she rises back over. She comes to the bottom of the bed and tries to pull me out of the bed. And I don't mind telling people this, but where she grabbed my feet, one of my toes is just all black. Like it's regular toenail, but it's black. And I let's just say but it's black. And I woke up once she started pulling me out of the bed. That's when I started getting scared because I wasn't asleep. I was wide awake the whole time. But that's when I started getting scared. And so when I woke up, I rose up like this because I was halfway out the bed, and I took the cover off of my mom and my uncle because they're still normal. Heads up here, but my head is down like at their waist. So when I rise up, I took the covers off for everybody. What are you doing? What are you doing? And I'm sitting there, and I never forget, I had a head full of gray hair. Like my mom used to let my hair grow when this is just 8 months of growth. But my mom used to let my hair grow as a child. And I remember I had a gray hair like until I was like 11 or 12, right here. And people used to say, oh, that stands for WILEY.
It keeps freezing.
Like I said, when I saw the little bird, I equated that bird as God.
Yeah.
And like I said, I already been boxing demons. And when I saw that one demon, particular demon, which I now know is the great whore, spoken of in Revelation 17, saints, I used to just think it was the devil. So I remember asking my mom, but anyway, I don't want to get too ahead of myself. So, but anyway, back to the room. And so about another year passes, about just 1 year passes. And I remember sitting in school. I'm 9 years old. I never forget, I'm 9 years old. And I was just fed up. I said, they're not locking me in this room anymore. I'm gonna fight everybody who tries to. And this is my motto while I'm walking home. I'm walking home, I'm ready.
Yeah.
I go in the house, and that same auntie, she already had a certain chair. They had a chair in there. Because by this time, I'd already sent one of my uncles to the hospital. He had chased me. And like I say, my grandma has that closet with all her stuff. She kept a big ball of keys. And like I say, for me being locked in this room for years, I did turn physical with everybody. Like I knew I was a knucklehead. So I never forget, he was sitting there watching TV. I hit him. He was, I'm already a ball of anger. And so he watching TV, minding his business, and I hit him. And he get up chasing me. And I know he really gonna fight me. You know what I'm saying? All my uncles, like, he's 6 months older, 6 years older than me. So I run to the closet, and I never forget. My grandma used to keep her little pistol. And I found it. It was in a white purse with little 22, 2 shots. Play loading it all the time. I used to play with it while I'm locked in that room. And I remember making the conscious choice not to grab the gun, even though voice said, grab the gun, grab the gun. But instead, I grabbed these keys and I hit them with it, but it hurt them, sent them to the hospital. So now they're extra keeping me locked in this room now. Now Josh really is the bad little kid, you know what I'm saying? And so that day I'm walking home And I'm like, nobody's gonna lock me in this room. So I get there, and the aunt who used to make a point to lock me in this room, she already had a chair put in there. She's like, you get in this room. And I'm crying. I'm like, no, I don't want to go in this room. Because I really didn't want to fight nobody. And I left this. She pushed me, and I hit her with a toothpiece. Right when my butt hit the chair, it was just that
Oh,
quick. She
wow.
dropped. I never forget, I knocked her out in the air. I remember watching her eyes close. And that same windowsill that I sat on, she banged her head on it. Boom. And my other aunt, one of my other aunts, and my grandmother's boyfriend, I call him Grandpa Joe to this day. He's still alive, actually. They were watching, laughing. They were sitting there laughing at us go back and forth and fight. Because like I say, they knew I was gonna get physical. By this time, I'm 9 years old.
Yeah.
Been locked in this room since I was 4, and I got physical with everybody.
Yeah.
You know? And so they're sitting there watching, and so I'm running towards the door, and I never forgot, because in my head I'm thinking I'm gonna have to fight Grandpa Joe because he's gonna stop me. In my head I'm thinking he's gonna stop me too, and I've already had it in my mind made up of fighting everybody. So he just said, "Nah, go ahead, young man, you got it." And I never forget, I took off running, and that was the last time she locked me in that room.
Yeah.
And it had twofold, because in that way it damaged me to think. The first thing I resort to, and I still have a problem now as I'm older. I don't know if you follow me on Facebook, but throwing these is always, it's like my hands made them leave me alone. So like from that point in my life,
you got conditioned into that. Yeah.
exactly. You see how small I am. And
Yeah.
so my hands would always be my first response to anybody grown up, no matter how big, things of that nature. You're gonna get my hands. You know what I'm saying? It was like my hands saved me in a way. So, but like I said, so that was the last time they locked me in the room. And not even 3-4 years later, I ended up putting a shotgun in somebody's mouth up in Camden, New Jersey. I was visiting my dad. My dad had just got off of crack. He was on crack for most of my life too, until he got clean when I was 14, until I was 14. And once he got clean, my mom was like, and by this time, I say when I was 9 or 10, I started really living with my mom. Like,
Right.
my mom fully in the church, no smoke, no drink, no none of that. You know what I'm saying? Not no partying. Really turned her life around. And that's when all me, my brother, and my sister, we all started living together with my mom. And so my mom, she already know, I'm watching her, and I don't want to jump around too much. I would just say like this, like by this time, and I'm friends. The lady who handed me this pamphlet, what I'm about to tell you, is friends with me on Facebook to this day. And I don't call her out or none of that stuff, but I remember she called me a demon child one time to my face. I'm 9, I was around 8 or 9, and nobody knowing what's going on with me, because like I said, I used to rarely talk. But and I never was the bully. Like I only mess with people who would mess with me.
Right.
Because I was quiet and a church boy. Oh yeah, people would come at me, and then because of how I could fight, I was always picked as the bad guy because I would win, or because they couldn't get me to stop sometimes. Let me just say it that way. Like I would hit somebody like 40, 50 times, like, or even as a little boy, as a little kid. But anyway, she called me, the same woman who called me a demon child. I never forget. And this is why we're in church. She was in Venison, and I'm sitting there looking at her. We're friends on Facebook to this day. And but that was my reputation as a little boy in the church. It was Josh is bad. And then because I could fight, all my other little boys in the church looked up to me. And I would get into a parents over that. I remember telling a parent to this day, he was like, you need to be a better influence. And I looked at him, I said, well, how about you be? That's not my child. I said, I didn't ask your son to follow me around. I'm gonna do what I want to. So I was just bad little kid already. Like it was like from that night in that room of the musical SRO, I said in my head, if they're not God, I'm not gonna do what they tell me to. Like it's like if it's not God, I'm gonna always do what I want to. No adult can tell me nothing. Like my hatred towards adults was sky high. Not only in my mind, not only was none there for me, and they were the ones always showing me this hate, but none tried to help me.
Right.
So my hate for adults was sky high. And that same parent, I end up almost fighting in church as a little boy, which shocked me. Yes. Because one time my mom was like, I was like, Mom, I'm leaving. And like I say, from that point on, I started doing whatever I wanted. And my mom was like, and I didn't like the fact that he was standing, we were in the pastor study, and it was during the 11 o'clock hour. And I was like, I'm going to the basketball court. I'm out of here. And he's trying to impress my mom. Like, I know he is. And he's trying to sit there. And I didn't like the fact that he was being nosy. So I kept looking at him. And he was like 6'1", 6'2". And I keep looking at him. And my mom was like, just pay. She already knows what's coming. Like, I said, I'm gone. I said, Mom, I'm gone. And I turned around, and I'll never forget, I felt a hand on my shoulder. And I was waiting on it. And I did the little move, and I pushed him hard up against the little desk that shook the hole. And I could see his eyes when the way he hit the cabinet. Because by this time, since I was 4, all I did was box at night. Like, even when I with my mom. And I still do to this day. Like, but anyway. But so it shocked him, and I could see the look on his face, and I started screaming. And when I get so emotional, sometimes I cry. I can't hold it, cry. And I'm already screaming, like, don't you ever touch me. And this is during the 11 o'clock hour. The whole church can hear it because we're in the pastor study. And I'm in his face, and I'm putting because I want him to touch me so I could hit him again, so I could hit him. You know what I'm saying? And he's just standing there looking at me. And for the longest, he still had hate towards me like that. But anyway, that's besides the point. But anyway, so I'm sitting there, and like I say, I got this. So I'm already at this reputation as a little boy growing up, things of that nature. And I got to rewind. Now that I'm living with my mom, I'm 12 years old. Now I'm 12. I'm staying with my mom and all that. And like I say, I'm super quiet. Mom still she knows nothing that other stuff that took place. And I asked my mom, I said, Mom, because I already seen because of seeing the demons out of eyes of a child and what I saw as a child, my eyes have never been the same. And even as a 12-year-old boy, I saw some of the grown-ups who were sleeping with each other at the church.
Yeah.
And I asked my mom, I said, Mom, my mom already knew I was going to do what I wanted to do. I said, Mom, can I study every religion? And whichever one I think is the truth, can I follow that? And she was like, yeah. And the reason I asked that, because I already had people in the church, I from reading the Bible, because I was reading the Bible on my own too. Because like I said, that little blurred bird, my best friend. I knew God. At this point, God was the only one I loved. Like, honestly, hands to the sky. The only person that could tell me what to do was God. And that's still to this day. But, and so people didn't know that was my favorite book to read. Still to this day is my Bible. And I love the stories in it. And so, and because I received so much hate, even from the church, like I say, people point and call me demon child, people ready to chastise me until I fight them. And then they're, okay, Brenda, your son bad. I'm not going to whoop him. You know what I'm saying? Things of that nature. So, and my mom, of course, said, yeah. She said, yeah. She knew I was going to do it anyway. Right. So the 4 months, she took me to the library. That was one of our favorite places to go because we were poor, but she knew I loved to read. Like, I have a bookshelf. Next time we do one, I'll sit next to my bookshelf. Or you've seen my YouTube videos where I maybe sit next to like, I love to read. And so I studied Baptist. It was Baptist, Muslim, the Pentecostal, and Adventist. Yeah. As a 12-year-old boy, those was the 4 major religions. It was Baptist, Muslim, Pentecostal, and it was Adventist. And that's when I chose Adventism on my own. About 3-4 months later, I said, Mama, I'm gonna be an Adventist. And she's smiling because I'm already an Adventist. She was like, why you say that? I said, because they're the only ones who keep the commandments. Yeah. And that's when I made the choice on my own to follow Adventism, because like I said, my mom couldn't control me. She knew I was going to do what I wanted to do regardless. So that's when I made the choice on my own. But 2 years later, I ended up getting locked up for, wanting some clothes. I'm in Jersey. Like I said, my dad is clean, and my older brother, Eric, who lived in South Carolina, who I had never met, my dad had some of his children, some of his sons all come up there too. My dad had 6'4", he had kids all over the place. Let me just say it like that.
Yeah.
Me and my older brother Eric, we meet each other for the first time. Now I'm in Camden, New Jersey. Camden, New Jersey was deemed one of the worst cities to live in for like 4 or 5 years, just to give people an analogy of how Camden is, you know. And so here we are in Camden, and we're poor because, like I did, my dad's a recovering addict, and my older cousins who were like during the time even locked in the room. My grandmother in New Jersey would come pick me up some summers, or my mom would take me up there some summers. So my older cousin Morty, I love to death, who was always like my big brother. Him and my cousin Marcus, we're just like, I think I'm like 3 months older than him.
Mm-hmm.
We all end up trying to rob a store. I'm the one who was happy holding my granddaddy's gun. So long story short, I end up getting locked up one summer, visiting my dad in Jersey, getting locked up in Jersey. I was sentenced to 3 years in Jamesburg, the juvenile prison.
Yeah.
While I'm sitting there, and because I've always been super smart, like I say, one of my favorite things to do is read.
Mm-hmm.
And my mom had us as vegetarians. So, like I tell people, when you read the story of Daniel, I think I just did a video on it the other day. I was
Yes,
like,
you did.
yeah, I was like, parents, if you want your kids to be smart, keep the meat out their diet and let them read the Bible. And I kid you not, like I outscored not only before I got locked up as a freshman, hands to the sky, I outscored almost my whole high school
Mm-hmm.
as a freshman. This is and that summer after my freshman year, that summer is when I got locked up. I don't want people to get lost in the sauce in what I'm saying. But so that freshman, we take the state exam, and I outscored almost my whole high school. I think it was a couple seniors who scored higher than me. Now,
Mm-hmm.
I'm used to always getting in trouble. So they come and get me out of class as a freshman, and they take me to the office. And I'm thinking I'm in trouble, so I'm already on defense mode. Like I never forgot, we walk into the office, teachers ain't told me nothing. So I'm sitting there like, man, what I do now? You know, so I'm already in a bad mood when I walk in there. And they told me straight up, it was like, look, they told me how high I scored, and I didn't know it was called a magnet student, and they had a separate school for gifted kids. And they were like, we want you to become a magnet student. You outscored this, you know, da da da. And I asked them, I remember leaning down because I hated people, and I hated, especially like I say, teachers. Me and
Yeah.
teachers never got along. And so I did like this, and I said, y'all want me to go to another school? They
Mm-hmm.
were like, yes, for other magnet students just like you.
What does
And
that mean?
yeah. And I said, and they said, you just gotta take a few more tests. I said, and I gotta do. I said, I'm not doing it. And I said, I'm not
Mm-hmm.
going. They said, well, we're gonna ask your mom. I said, I don't care what you tell her. I remember I said, it don't matter what she say, I'm not doing it. And so I never told my mom for the longest, even though they had already talked to him. She told him if he doesn't want to do it, I'm not gonna be able to make Josh do it. Like that was already settled for years with me.
Right.
So anyway, so yeah, I'm back to me being locked up. So that
Yeah.
summer was around, and what I said about parents and their kids and being smart, I'm sitting there and I outscored the whole in the jail system. What they used to do was all the kids who got sentenced to Jamesburg, which if you watch the movie Hurricane, Denzel Washington, who became a famous boxer, he was sentenced to Jamesburg and ended up escaping. So just to give a little people about this little prison that's in New Jersey. So before you had to go to the prison while you're being processed, you had to take a test. And this is what my smart saved me for once, you know, said was because I outscored everybody on there. All these boys' homes was wanting to recruit me and for me to come to the home because they thinking, oh, he has to be a really good guy. You know what I'm saying? He outscored all this. So I ended up having to go to a boys' home. And I never forgot, but one of the things I want to tell you with things concerning the church was I'll never forget I'm sitting there. Now, I'm looking at 3 years in prison. I'm in a whole nother state. I'm pretty much born and raised in Asheville, North Carolina. And I only used to visit New Jersey on the summers, some summers with my grandma.
Mm-hmm.
I only knew my 2 cousins in New Jersey. You know what I'm saying? Where, like I say, that habit of being locked in that room. So Camden is not very Disneyland. Like I say, it was ranked one of the most dangerous cities to live in for several years. To give people another backdrop. And I remember these backdrops about Camden. If you're from it, you remember, but there was the movie with Die Hard. It was one of the Die Hards. where I want to say it was either Die Hard 4 or 5, and
Mm.
he's told to go to Camden to pick up one of this little guy for questioning, and they
Mm-hmm.
have this big shootout. Half the building explodes, and then just for some humor and to show people how real Camden was, Bruce Willis had to get on the horn and tell the cops, "Are y'all gonna send somebody over here or not? Is somebody gonna come here?" And he just looked and said, "I hate Camden," and hung up the phone. You know, you can go to the movie and watch, because that shows you.
Yeah.
So, am I locked up in this foreign state where I didn't go to school and had none of these guys or nothing? But I'm with the criminals of this
Mm-hmm.
already city. I'm in locked up with the criminals. But the first time I got tested, that's why I said the boxing played a pivotal role in the path that I chose to take in life.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny how God took what was deemed as like fear from these demons trying to touch me, to where my hands ended up keeping people off of me in a lot of
Right.
systems. My nickname was Country because of my accent from North Carolina. And
Okay.
so it became quick, like, okay, Country can fight. And so they
Yeah.
ended up voting me a group captain in this one boys' home, because you had 3 group captains over the groups. And I didn't want to be group captain. Like I said, I rarely talk. But people, I never forget my group telling me, they were like, "Look, we want you to be group captain because you treat everybody the same." And I'm like, "Because I don't know none of y'all to play favorite." Oh, that's smart, my like, I don't know none of y'all. Everybody get treated the same, big, little, small, you know. But I ended up being a group captain, and I ended up doing time. But I want to rewind. What I was getting to is, I'm sitting there. I'm just telling like pivotal things that change my perception of things. Is I'm sitting there and I'm looking at 3 years in Jamesburg. I'm in this foreign state, and my mom gets to visit me in the jail. Poor mom, I know, man. I love my mom to death. She had my brother and sister live with some family in Asheville, and she
Mm-hmm.
quit her job and she moved to Philadelphia so
Mm-hmm.
she could be close to me while I was locked up, which ended up being a pure blessing. Because as a nurse, she quickly got another job in Philly, and she would come back and forth to visit me during visitation. But I'm sitting there, and she gives me a stack of letters about this thing, and I never forgot it. She slides it to me, and she says, uh, she says, "These are letters from the people from church." And I said, "Whoa," I'm thinking it's from my friends. And I'm like, "Yeah," and I'm about to look at it, and she stops me because she knows her son. She stops me and she said, "They disfellowshipped you." Now, at this time, I'm 14 years old. And like I say, none of them had ever helped me ever in my life, ever. And not even have it even acquired into, "Hey, Josh, what's going on with you?" But anyway, so I'm sitting there and I said, "What does disfellowship mean?" And she said, "They, it means where you're no longer a member of the church." I said, "No longer a member?" And I put 2 and 2 together quick. Like I say, one of my favorite habit was reading. The Bible and Young Sherlock Holmes was my favorite books. But anyway, so I'm sitting there and I said, and I never forget, I told my mom this. I said, "Mom, now remember how God works. Because I saw this demon with blood draped to head to toe and these demons trying to touch me, I knew there was a good and evil without a shadow of a doubt. Like there has never been no question. Like I say, my eyes had never been the same. The Bible had always been an open book to me. And my mom used to even tell me, "Josh, people don't see the world like you do." You know, because she would tell me that with my friends. And I'm like, "Mom, my friend said this." And I guess my mom looked, she would always tell me, "Josh, people don't see the world like you do." But anyway, the beauty of it was, like I say, for me seeing these demons out of eye, which made me study every religion, because I knew that there was a good and evil without a shadow of a doubt. No question, because of what I saw as a child, there was never no question there was a good and evil. And you didn't have to tell me that when I'm reading the Bible and it says demons or be tempted, the devil can tempt you. It's like, yeah, he could be standing right here. We just don't see him
Mm-hmm.
because as a child, I always knew that they were always around. But anyway, so I told my mom, I leaned over and I said, "Mom, that doesn't mean I'm not a child of God." I said, "He's still my father." Now remember, I still held on, like I said, when I was 8 years old, no, 7 years old, who did I tell everybody who would adopt? It was God.
God. Yeah.
And I told my mom then, I said, "I don't care what they do." I said, "I don't care what they do. I'm still a child of God. They can't tell me that he's not my father." I said, oh, I'm not a member of that church. But anyway, when I got out, they ended up wanting me to be a member. Again, they said I had to apologize to the church. Now me, and I never forget, I'm not going to tell my Sabbath school teacher's name because she loved me. By this time, I ended up doing 1.5 years in the boys' home and in jail and prison. And I got out, went back to North Carolina, and I hadn't been there not even a month. And they were like, you could become a member again, but you have to apologize to the church. And by this time, I'm almost 17. I'm like, are y'all serious? I never got no letter, like no friend, no letter out of love saying, Josh, how are you and all that. Matter of fact, I probably did, but I didn't read them. Once mama told me about free, I slid them back to her. I never touched that stack of letters. I never touched it. But I never forget my Sabbath school teacher, she said, Josh. And she actually started crying when she saw the coldness in me. But remember, as a child, I said, and she said, Josh, you can be a member. She's excited while she's telling me you can be a member again and we'll reinstate your membership. And you can, because they wanted me to, and I'll get to this one, the second part, but, and I said, apologize to the church. I said, are you kidding me? I told her, I never forget telling her, just like, because by this time I'm 17. And I said, look, I've already made my peace with God and I served my time. I'm not apologizing to none of y'all. I said, I ain't do nothing to none of y'all. I'm not. And she started crying. And I remember sitting back and other people looking, Josh, so you made Spencer cry. I'm like, I ain't make her cry, you know what I'm saying? So I'm like, you know, and, that was my sister and them. I never get, Josh, you're so mean. And I said, I'm not apologizing to none of them, you know what I'm saying? Anyway, and then even meetings, don't let your children hang around and things of that nature. But anyway, so as time goes on, I'm wilding out. Like I'm pure wild. I end up getting locked up over 20-something times. To this date, I've been locked up 27 times. And but January 22nd, 1999, I'm locked up. Now remember my habits. There's only one entity on earth that I listen to.
Yeah.
God, since I was a child, like I said. So January 22nd, 1999, I'm locked up. I'm now in Tennessee. And by this time, I've been locked up in 3 different states around hundreds of different grown men. And one of the things, and my guardian angel, look, I've seen some horrible stuff. And I tell you, not choose that life. I've seen some horrible stuff take place. And I know it wasn't always my box. And I know it was my guardian angel. Yeah. God looking over me, like hands down. But anyway, and I'm looking at 18 years in prison. And so I snap on this one inmate and I end up, and I often joke about it. I'm like, they put me on lockdown inside of lockdown. So I had to do a year on 23-hour lockdown. But where you only got out of your cell for 30 minutes in the day, 30 minutes a night. So when I got out and they put me back in regular population.
Oh, you were in solitary?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
And so keeping me away from everybody. And then my mom even told me on the phone one time, like, because during my 30 minutes, I called her and I never forgot. She was like, I'm complaining. Mama, they got me in here. I only get to get out of myself. And, you know, my mom just so calm and, you know, she know her son. She said, maybe you deserve to be in there for a little while. What? And I start banging the phone, boom, 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 you know, banging the phone on the wall, you know.
So what was that like? What was that like in that cell for that long by yourself? What was that like?
You know what? I'm glad you asked, because remember what I said at the very beginning, how God will, what the devil intends to harm you or break you, God will twist it for your good. Sis. The reason why I got locked up so many times without a care was because I'd already been getting locked up since I was a child. Since I was Since I was 4, I've been getting locked up. So to me, it wasn't nothing. I knew how to throw my mind different places. Like I told a story the other day about I call him my little big guy, this chameleon that had climbed up the walls and who had lived close to my cell. And they had paint on our windows because that's torture, not to let you see outside. And the paint scrapes off in certain spots. So I would spend hours squinting. Look, but do you hear that habit? Yeah. Remember, I used to spend hours staring out the window as a child.
Right.
So even in this cell, I'm still the same habits. So I'm squinting and I'm just staring out the window at my little comedian friend. But
Mm.
I saw that as a blessing. And when I got older, that here, it didn't, I've seen men commit suicide because they
Mhm.
couldn't in that cell. Grown men screaming. Like I may often used to make jokes that a lot of the guys who in the street act like they so hard and tough. I've seen them, you know,
Mm.
in that cell, you know, everybody cries in that cell. Everybody cries, no matter how much you get used to it. But it's a whole different world. It's a
Yeah.
total different world. And so, but it was just like summer camp to me for the longest because
Mm.
of what I went through as a child.
Right.
And
Yeah,
so,
that makes sense.
yeah, I was totally like, I was in there, had my workout regimen, you know, things of that nature. And so I would say very much I had an incarcerated mind state. And even
Mhm.
to certain habits I have to break, you know, that I still deal with, wrestle with, like I say, on an everyday basis. But if I hadn't been through certain things as a child and say I would have got locked up later in life, it would have broke me. Like I saw some, which could have been a good break.
Mhm.
You know what I'm saying? Because I seen guys who got locked up one time was like, I'll never go back. And the
Yeah.
old Josh is like, yeah, whatever. I'm gonna rob, steal, kill, do
Yeah.
whatever I want to do. Josh, you're gonna get locked up. Who cares? You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
it, like I
Yeah.
say, it wasn't until my firstborn, Ariel, that's when it broke me. That's when the cell became worse because I couldn't get to it.
Right.
Like I say, because I couldn't get to my daughter. That was the worst time I ever been locked up,
Mhm.
like, and that's what really changed. That's what changed me was my kids, and I
Mm.
love telling them because I often tell her I say that's your specialty. You helped save your dad.
Mhm.
You didn't even know it, so I love giving her those flowers of how special she is to me. That
Mhm.
prison was not prison until I had her,
Mm.
until I couldn't hold her. I'm telling you
Right.
that first night was crucial, and I'm glad my cellmate was a friend. He was, you know, he had been in and out of the system from drugs too, so we knew each other.
Mhm.
So he kept cool with me, and I fear
Mhm.
if it had been somebody else who didn't know me, who might have been laughed at my tears. Like a lot of things happen in them cell doors when, you know what I'm saying, there's no emergency buttons and none of that. That's why I tell a lot of young boys today, I'm like, especially if where men, they're not raising boys to be physical and things of that nature. I'm like, you really don't want to go to that. That's a whole nother world. But anyway, January 22nd, 1999, I'm doing one of my stints, like
Mhm.
when I say one of my Boy Scout stints where I'm cutting up and I'm in the jail. Matter of fact, it was after I'd done a year on lock in solitary. So they let me back out. And by this time the guards know me, like I say, other inmates know me.
Mhm.
Uh, I wake up to screaming. Boom boom. And the jail, there's tornado was hitting downtown Clarksville, and the jail is downtown. And so I wake up and everybody's screaming, help, help, help. And you could hit the right when I woke up, the tornado hit the jail once. Boom, and it shook us.
Mm.
Then some people, like I say, where the paint has wore off on some of the windows, you could hear them screaming like they had already been up. And the ones who could afford radios, who families sent them money to have radios in there, they're like, they'd already knew it was coming. So they would say, it's coming again, it's coming again. And it hit again. Boom. And I never forgot this moment where now the jail is nothing but concrete and steel. And we're shaking like this. We're
Wow.
shaking. So I'm waiting on it to go boom, 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 like you see on TV.
Yeah.
You see the jail collapse. And so you can hear it. And they said, it's right over us. And we were in the eye of it. And all the buildings around us, it fell. We didn't find this out till later. I said, isn't it ironic that,
Mm.
that every building around the building that
Was
housed us
destroyed.
was destroyed,
Wow.
except the building that housed the criminals.
Mm.
The building that housed the people in the world, whether it's the ruffians, the people wash their hands up, the crackheads, the drug dealers, the killers, you know, the fighters. That's the only building that was left standing. and it hit us 3 times. And this third time, you could hear it like, woo. When you look at that movie Twister, and they say when you're in I, it's a silence, and then you hear like a big deep hum. They wasn't lying, like at all. And you could hear it go, woo. Then all of a sudden it just said, boom, and we shook. The jail doors was like a fence. This was before it was January 22nd, 1999, 4:35 in the morning. And I remember grabbing the thing and shaking just like this from side to side.
Wow.
And I was waiting on the building, like I say, for that
Yeah.
concrete. I don't know how a building that's nothing but concrete and steel shakes from side to side like this. And that's what I say, nothing but God. No one but God. And the guards, they had warned, the city had warned the guards, because Clarksville, Tennessee, and Kentucky is a known tornado alley and state. They had already had procedures where they were supposed to take the inmates to the bottom part and all of that. But the guards had went down there and left us up there to die, and lied on the radio. Lied. Now this is the next day. I'm gonna skip it. So the next day, so we're still standing and everything. So that next morning, everybody's still awake. And so about 5, not even 30 minutes later, the people who had the radios was like, they lied to the city, because the radio was like, DJ said, if you had any family in the Montgomery County jail, don't worry, they're safe. All the guards took the inmates below. And the guards, and of course they lied. And their excuse to us was, well, we wasn't sure if y'all was gonna riot. I'm like, if you tell guys that a tornado is coming, nobody's right. Everybody's gonna be single file line going straight downstairs until it's gonna cut up, if the tornado's coming. But anyway, they just didn't want to do it. They were just fearing for their lives. But anyway, the minute they said the other people heard the lies that they told, you heard a toilet flush. Here comes the riot. For real. And that's when they start flooding their cells. So me, quick thinking, I built a dam. I took the inside out my mattress, and I took tape, paper, and toothpaste from my paper from my commissary to write letters. And I actually made a dam in my door. So I didn't want pee and boo-boo water floating in my cell. You know what I'm saying? So, but anyway, that's still that same morning, people are riding, and a whole bunch of people are talking. And I hear everybody saying, man, I'm glad this jail stood, and nobody thanked the jail. And that was one of my first times really getting vocal. And I remember I got on everybody on the pod. I was so mad, because here I just shook like this in concrete and steel. So I yelled it out. I said, y'all gonna give credit to this building? I said, that was God. I said, what is wrong with y'all? I said, every building around us is crumbled and was built that same way. Usually the jail looks just like the courthouse and all that. I said, me, y'all thinking the building, talking about the building's supposed to be tornado proof. I'm just listening to guys talk, and I'm like, are you kidding me? So I snapped. I go off on everybody. I can't believe I didn't. And so I remember going to sleep. And the reason why I told all of that was because that day, that dream, once I laid down, I'm dreaming, and God interrupted my dream. He picked me up. I never forgot. He picked me up, and he dropped me in the field of wheat. And I had my afro. My afro was about this big. And I dream every night. Like I say, every night I dream, and I'm sitting there, and I knew it wasn't a regular dream, because once he drops me in this field, I started to see a hole in the sky open up, and see his hand all the way up to his elbow come out the hole, and he points to me and he says, "Come to me, Joshua." And that same, and I never forgot, I woke up and it was pure darkness. I couldn't see. And I got to say that too, because that's key also. I'll just go on to say, the reason why I say that's key, because I found out later in reading when Ellen White said she would come out of her visions from when you see something so pure and heavenly, and your eyes open back up in this sinful environment.
Right.
Eyes had needed time to adjust. The sinful environment after seeing something so holy and so pure. So, but I never forgot how dark it was. Like I couldn't see, like almost like to the point where I thought I was blind for a little while. But anyway, I woke up, and after all of that, I'm super excited, like, because like I said, this was my best friend, the only person I ever really listened to all of that. So I remember opening my Bible. I kid you not. This is what I used to do because I had already read the Bible over like once since I had been during this year and change. And so what I used to do for my morning devotions, whenever I would wake up, was I would just pray and then open up my Bible and wherever my eyes glance on, that's what I would read.
Mm-hmm.
It opened up to Numbers 12. It opened up to Numbers 12, and I won't even get to what was said in there. That was dealing with Aaron and Miriam, where
Mm-hmm.
they were upset with Moses for
Mm.
choosing their wife, and
Yeah.
God came down and said, "Who I choose to talk to is who I talk to." You know how you going? I'm just paraphrasing,
Yeah.
but something about seeing his arm, and I'll never forget. Later on, a couple months later, God actually ran me across Isaiah chapter 53.
Mm-hmm.
Isaiah chapter 53 and verse 1. And these verses have become lifelines to me, and I understand clearly why Isaiah says the first line when he says, "Who hath believed our report?" Because if sometimes we praise Isaiah today, and they'll use Isaiah examples, but
He
if you
wasn't popular back then.
exactly, they
Yeah.
thought he was crazy, especially
Yeah.
like the one time God told him to run around Israel in his naked for 3 years.
Yeah.
If nakedness, so that means basically he had his underwear on.
Right.
I told me and my mom were laughing about this not even too long ago because I said, "Mom, I could just see old ladies in the church. That Isaiah running around them drawers. I remember last time I seen them drawers. Talking about here, messenger of the Lord. That boy ain't no messenger of the Lord. He need to change them underwear." That's why they would, So when he says at the first part, he says, "Who hath believed our report? And to whom is the arm of the Lord revealed?"
Wow.
It comforted me
Mm.
in dark times, because honestly, I told my mom just here recently, I'm coming into grips with who I am, and it took me 44 years. And I told my mom, I said, Mom, I said, I had so much self-hate because no matter, I could be the best singer in the world. I could outscore every high school I ever attended. But if the people who I live with every day or who I yearn to tell me they love me never do, or just show me hate, it's no matter what, I still won't believe it.
Mhm.
But if I'm gifted at this, or I'm the best at this, or I'm this way, if I didn't believe it. I had so much hate, like self-hate.
Yeah.
Where I just looked at myself like, it is what it is. It's just, I'm just here to exist, kind of.
Yeah. Yeah. I know that feeling. Yeah.
It's like I'm not special. And like,
Mhm.
so God did a lot of supernatural. He allowed a lot of supernatural things to happen to me. And I see clearly now, it wasn't to say, "Oh, Josh, like, oh, you're better than this person." No, that was the only way Josh would ever believe that I was meant to teach this.
Mm.
A little boy who's been told he was a demon child, no good. Like I say, my mom had a rough, hard life, and I said and done a lot to her, and she didn't find out what happened to me as a child until years later. So she didn't know why I had a lot of hate even towards her, because my hate don't discriminate. Just say it didn't matter who it was. Like a couple of the last churches, some of the pastors in a few years ago even found out. Anyway, but my hate never discriminated, and so I would have never believed that I was called to do this if God didn't do some extra stuff of telling me I'm special.
Right.
Or like one of the things was after I saw him, I had a dream, and I already woman on the beach. I'll just say I had a dream. I was kicked out of a dream, and I'm in the air. In the air, it was a woman sitting on the beach, and the beast looked like a big elephant, and she spoke a different language. She said it was like kakak. She said something like kakak, and I'm sitting there just looking at the beast, like wow, like looking at this big old elephant. But the way the elephant had these things, and she's sitting behind it, and she looked like Alyssa Milano. I always say that. It looked like Alyssa Milano, the young version of Who's the Boss. And I'm sitting there looking at it, and they charged, when she said, "Kakarak," they charged me and they hit me. Boom. And I woke up in real life, and I was flying across the room. And I hit the other side of the wall across the room in my cell and slid down my cell. So it was like stuff like that had to happen, and stuff like I dreamt the whole chapter of Zechariah 3. And I love telling people that story because it's me and my mom were talking about, because I didn't know it was Zechariah 3. I just know I'm sitting in my trailer. You know, I lived in this, I had this one little trailer. Because once I got out at certain times, that's when I started. I always had my own, because I always, like I say, nobody tell me nothing. So I knew I had to get my own. And so I would hustle, do whatever I had to do, work a little 9 to 5 and hustle, do whatever, but I always had my own. And my mom, she pulling up, and she would pull up to my trailer one morning, and I had dreamt the whole chapter of Zechariah 3. Like I say, I'm sitting there and I'm talking to Gabriel, and I'm asking him questions about God. And I'm like, yo, and these are nature. And I'll never forget Gabriel. He gave me this look like he was mad at me. And then all of a sudden he appeared right next to me. And he snatched all my clothes off, and he put his arm next to mine. And I won't say what he told me. I often feel it. He told me, he said, "Josh, you don't know how powerful." And I was like, okay. And then he said, "This is in the Bible." And I was like, and I woke up, and I'm outside drinking. It's early morning. And Mom knew I usually wait till about noonish before I drink. And she said, and it's Saturday morning, Sabbath morning, she used to always pull up and see if I wanted to go to church with her. And she said, "Boy, you drinking already? What are you doing?" And I said, "No, Mom." I said, "You ever heard a story in the Bible where there was a Joshua talking to an angel or talking to Gabriel?" And she said, No, I've never heard of that. No other story. And I said, okay. I said, maybe it's just me drinking. She's like, "Well, have you been eating late last night?" I said, "I don't know, maybe." And I said, 2 weeks later, she pulls back up to the trailer. And I never forgot, she had her Sabbath school quarterly. She said, I found it. By that time, I'd already forgot about it. Because like I said, I was used to certain things happening. I'd already forgot about it. And I was like, "Mom, what are you talking about?" And she said, "What the dream you told me you had?" Is Zechariah. She said, "It's Zechariah chapter 3. And we both sat down and we read it. She was blown away. I was blown away. And I said, "See," I said, "Wow." So we were laughing and joking the other day. I said, "Mom," I said, "I'm glad I told somebody, because if I would have just told somebody that without no proof later on, like this, you just thought I was crazy."
Yeah, that's amazing.
Would have been like, here Josh goes saying some crazy stuff again. One of the reasons why I believe God did stuff like that to me. And I often say it because I'm no better than nobody like that. I've been locked up 27 times, and the things that I've done that I didn't get caught for, the thoughts that I've had, I'll never appear or act like I'm better than anybody ever. And if God would have never done those things to me, I would never have taught. I would never teach. And like, even the Holy Spirit had to drill in me about me seeing his arm and say, "Josh," one day I'm sitting there, he said, "Josh, do you know how many men have longed to see any piece of the Lord throughout?" And I feel funny even saying that, but I get goose because I'm like, and it really had to hit me like, sis, I'll be honest with you, these past 3 years dealing with my sickness, I'll go on and fast forward because like that's what made me do YouTube. And I'm all that together because that's what made me even do YouTube, was me wanting to take up for the Lord. I came back into the church, and I'm sitting there, and by this time I'm living with my mom. This was years ago. Mom's helping me out. She's going through some stuff, so it's like we helping each other out. And this was our chance. This what really made us grow close to each other. But anyway, I'm sitting there looking at the Forerunner videos, and that's why Chris Hudson played a critical part
Mm.
having somebody like that, because a knucklehead like me, coming straight from the street, still smoking cigarettes and weed and things of that, while I'm making a transition into the church, it took somebody like the forerunner who I could
Right.
relate to.
Yes.
And back when he was doing the videos with his green shirt on,
Yeah.
library,
Right.
he had homeless at that time, going
Mm-hmm.
through some stuff. But so he was instrumental in keeping my attention. Somebody from the street, because in his lingo, I could tell, okay, he from where I'm from. And then he was breaking down hip hop videos. And so I learned he was instrumental on keeping me interested in the church. And so, you know, like if it had been somebody, say one of the elders from the church, you know how Adventist people tend to speak. So what I am, no, Josh would have, you know, it took somebody just honest with a regular shirt
Right.
on. You know, you don't have to pronounce your words particular every time, you know.
Yeah.
So and I love Chris Hudson for being himself and for doing that. And I'm fruit of his and like Dwayne Lemon's ministry and other people's ministry of that aspect, you know, who is able to bridge that gap of brothers
Mm-hmm.
straight from the street into the church.
Yeah.
But I always love to go deep. So that's what like Ava Myers, Stephen Bohr, especially Stephen Bohr, Doug Batchelor, and Walter White. Well, Henry Wright is my earthly favorite teacher.
Yeah. Yeah.
He thought that he was the knucklehead. So he ended up, once I came across Henry, it was over. I probably listened to every Henry sermon.
Yes.
You
I
know,
love him and Walter Pearson. Yeah. Yeah.
and look, one of the I was the little, like I said, because of what I saw as a child, and I know you'll see that everything my whole life has to do with my YouTube and me teaching, because everything I saw as a child, the demons that I saw, and I used to question God. I used to say, Lord, why did you let me? Because I talk to God how I talk to you, and He answers. I like most. I'd be like, but anyway, I say, Lord, why did you always allow me to see the great whore and these demons first before seeing you?
Hold on. I'm sorry. Hold on. Just one moment.
Well, for anybody who will be watching this, you know, I'm glad y'all have sat with me thus far. You know, Sister Rochelle's a good
Okay.
person.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. I was
Yeah.
a little intermission.
Yeah.
You know, so speaking highly of you. But anyway, I'm sitting there and I would ask God that. And one day he told me, one day he said, Josh, I allowed you to see those things so you would know, and I alluded to it earlier, so you would know that there was a good and evil without a shadow of a doubt.
Wow.
And like I say, the Bible has always been an open book to me, to where I understood the sermons as a child. Like, you know, I was a little boy sitting there listening. Like I'm a name, and I was reminded of that because I'm gonna name something with Henry. But anyway, I wanted to rewind back a little bit to the moment where I was reading in my word and I came across Revelation 17, and it broke me in tears because that demon dripped from head to toe in blood.
Mm-hmm.
My muscles have memory, and sometimes at the lowest points in my life, when a couple times when I thought about taking my own life, things of that nature, one of my pit bulls saved me. The Lord
Mm-hmm.
used my pit bull named Ginger to actually keep me from taking my life one time, because the Lord knew I was gone. I had my gun loaded. I was 19, really didn't have nothing, just smoking and drinking. And Ginger was going crazy. It was snowing outside and she was rah, 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 like she knew what I was going to do. And I'm standing there and the Lord just whispered to me, who's going to take care of Ginger? She was my best. And she's snapping, going crazy. And I never forget, I went there in the backyard and I had a chair I used to keep next to her doghouse. And I sat in the chair. I opened up my triple fat goose. That was back when triple fat gooses was popular. And I opened it up and she would put her legs up on her front two legs up on my lap. And I closed her. And I remember just going to sleep. But anyway, that was one time. But like I was gonna say, one little thought. So I'm sitting there and so I get to Revelation 17, and I read the description of it. Because, like I was gonna say, whenever I would get to low points in my life, I always felt she was around.
Right.
Certain people, like she would be standing in the room, and my muscles would let me know. Like I could even tell the difference. That's when I started realizing there's difference between low level demons and high, like military.
Yeah.
And so, and when I read that in Revelation 17 about Babylon being drunk and drunken with the blood of the saints and marveling at her, I was blown away. I said, that was her. And really, really remember, and I brought this point up too, because I used to look for answers because I already knew people already said I was crazy and bad looking. So I used to look for answers like, Lord, what's wrong with me? So when I came across that, and remember when I said when I first saw her, my grandmother's iron pot, she was right here, and there was an iron pot floating. When I came to this passage in Revelation, this is when and this was needed for my edification. It was in Revelation chapter 2, and it was talking about the letter, the church of Thyatira.
Yeah.
When he's talking to the church of Thyatira, he said, the patience notwithstanding, let me find the exact.
What was the chapter?
It's chapter 2, and it starts at 18. I guess I'll
Revelation.
Revelation chapter 2, and when I came to verse 20, and I'll start at verse 20, and I'll read it down. It says, notwithstanding, I have a few things against me, because thou sufferest that woman Jezebel, which calleth herself a prophetess, to teach and to seduce my servants to commit fornication and to eat things sacrificed unto idols. And I gave her space to repent for her fornication, and she repented not. Behold, I will cast her into a bed, and them that commit adultery with her into great tribulation, except they repent of their deeds. And I will kill her children with death, and all the churches shall know that I am he which searcheth the reins in the hearts, and I will give unto you everyone according to your works. But unto you I say, unto the rest in Thyatira, as many have not this doctrine, and which have not known the depths of Satan as they speak, I will put on you no other burden, but that which ye have already hold fast till I come. And he that overcometh and keepeth my works unto the end, to him will I give power over the nations, and he shall rule them with a rod of iron. As the vessels of a potter shall they be broken into shivers, as I have received of my Father. And so iron, and I saw, here this Jezebel. So for the longest, I was like, was that her? Because I said, remember, my grandmother's big iron skillet was floating on one side, and she was on the other, as if it was a choice. And like I say, I was crowned Clarksville's freestyle champion. Me always choosing the world, I always ended up in some rough predicaments. Like I say, locked up 27 times, some horrible situations. And I knew once I looked back on everything, even here recently, it was like I knew the devil wanted me out of the church since I was a child. It's like God had to sit me down one time here recently in the past 3-4 years. And actually, matter of fact, I can't, it was my mother. Some stuff happened with my family here at one of the churches here. And I was disfellowshipped again because of my temper.
I don't understand that disfellowship thing. I don't understand it.
Yeah, I believe people misuse it. It's misused because only certain ones they pick and choose. We're gonna follow the root. We're gonna bring up this tidbit in the manual with this person, but with this person, we ain't going.
Yeah.
And it's misused. And actually, Ellen White even said in the manual that it should be the last resort, only used for people who are like, say if a guy is living in polygamy, or say he's married and he has a relationship outside of his marriage and he refuses to let it go. And he says, I don't care what y'all say, I'm not letting it go. Then it's like, okay, then eventually, then you shouldn't be a member because somebody might think that's okay, you know. And so it's like and I think Paul touched on it when he said, when he's touching on sexual sins in the church. He
Mm-hmm.
said somebody just blatantly and they refusing to hear counsel, they're refusing to stop, then you should tell them let's part ways, you
Mm-hmm.
know. But it's the last, but it usually never gets, you know, the proper steps are never followed.
Mm.
So
Okay.
then it becomes a misuse of power. And
Okay.
I stress that to people. If you don't do it how God says do it, then you're actually sinning. You're actually
Yeah.
wrong in what you're doing. You know, you're actually wrong with. But then again, and the situation that happened with me here was jealousy. It was jealousy and envy because people, once I came back into the church 10 years ago, and I had a public access TV show in Nashville, come on 4 nights a week, and it was an event show reaching over 1 million homes. And then I have my YouTube channel, and then I would have people from different churches come and fellowship with me at my house after church, because I'm used to, like I say, church was my safe haven growing up.
Mm-hmm.
Where I had my friends. I wasn't locked in no rooms there. I didn't have to deal with certain people of my
Yeah.
family. And so, and I was used to being in church all day. My mom would have choir rehearsal. We would eat potluck, then they would have choir rehearsal, and then we would have AYS, you know what I'm saying? And so we were used to being in church from morning until sunset. So nowadays that's rare. So and it's not in this area. So I would hold Bible studies at my house. Me and my mom. Like I told me and my mom, because that's one of my closest friends to this day.
Mm-hmm.
About to share something else about my mom about recently, but so when I got into all of this stuff here at one of the churches a few years ago, and my mom just came to me totally point blank. She says, the devil does not want you in any churches around. And I'm like, and she was the main one. She said, no, Josh, you have to see it. She said, ever since you were little, you know, the devil's always tried to keep you away from church. Like she said, you excel anytime you make music, anytime, you know, you're performing here and there, you get, she said, but anything has to do with the church, the devil always throws monkey wrenches. She says, you're always in conflict with pastors and elders, you know, and I really had to take a step back and look at it. And I was like, wow. I was like, Mom, you're right. And then everything else that I tried to bury and run from, God opening the sky and calling me by name, showing me his arm, you know, this woman on this beast kicking me in a dream, and I wake up in the middle and I'm in the air and I hit the other side of my wall in my cell, boom, and slide down the wall. You know, all of this stuff started coming back to mind, you know, and I was like, wow. And then like 3 weeks ago, no, it's been a month and a half now, I had a dream about judgment, and
Mm.
and it was clear, like crystal clear, and these little children just glowing. First, I'm watching all this destruction, and I'm sitting here twisting my hair, and basically, I'm not, you know, I'm just twisting my hair, watching all this destruction going on, and these little children. I'm just giving a summary of the dream, but they, matter of fact, this angel comes, and he's his black jacket on, and he crouches, and I hear a voice says, "Destruction is coming." And I look back and you can see these storms and this cloud, things of this nature is coming. And these little kids run up and they're shining gold as the sun. Like they had
Mm.
gold spray paint on them. And they tell me, they say, Josh, your name is in the book. And at first my heart dropped. No, first they said, he's opening the book. He's opening the book. And and they're like, your name is in the book. And I'm like, wow.
Mm.
And they said, but it has a question mark though. Like, don't get too happy. You have to do what he tells you to do. You know,
Yeah.
so that really, and like I said, this whole show, while I've been saying, me and my mom, just a couple weeks ago, have been talking about this. This is what led to us talking about all this
Right.
other in our past, because she was one of the people who firsthand see it and knew it as it was going on, the things that
Mm.
but and what made me get a YouTube, what made me actually start a YouTube was my defense of the Lord. 10 years ago, I wanted to jump back to that. I've been
Yeah.
bouncing around. But So I'm sitting there and I would watch Chris Hudson videos, Stephen Bohr, Ava. Matter of fact, with Ava Myers, I actually, what made me watch Ava Myers because in school, I
Mhm.
actually bought the Boogie Monsters album before he even started preaching. All I heard was a Seventh-day Adventist rap group. I was like, oh no. I remember going to the record store that day. And this is back when you had to go to the record store before internet. And I set up the Boogie Monsters cassette tape. And I even remember some of the lines I used to wear it out. They had a song called The Mark of the Beast. And his brother who did a lot of the rapping because of his tone of his voice and how he rap would say, and the seed is growing, flowing, doing the uterus to the core, making the earth hungry. But those are some of the lines from one of their songs from The Mark of the Beast that was on that Boogie Monsters album. So when I heard that Albert Myers, matter of fact, my mom had one of these, she was excited. Here, he used to rap. And I looked, I'm like, yo, this is from the I just don't like, surface. I like to go deep in the word. But
Mhm.
anyway, but I would see a lot of other videos where people were talking bad about Adventists. And I would read the comments, and me being a fighter, I would get on there and you're wrong, and I'm just
Mhm.
and I realized on something. Why don't you make a video?
Sorry, it keeps freezing.
Oh no, you're fine. You're fine. But he said, why don't you make a video? And the enemy's gonna try to throw monkey wrenches any way he can, you know. And I was like, yo, I should make a video and start making my own video. And so that night I made a YouTube account. And no, I already had one. It was for my rap group.
Mhm.
so, and so all I did was change the name from Top Soldiers, and I put just Joshua Wiley. And if
Mhm.
my very first videos is about Adventism. So I said, because like I said, I was fresh into the church. I had a friend of mine. She she said, if you look at your earlier videos, you could even tell by your language you was street. She was just like, yeah, you was awesome. And you kept licking your lips like LL Cool J, and you was like, yeah. So this is Adventist. If you read this, it's just like you can tell a big difference from then and now. Because like I said, I used to really never do too much talking, you
Mhm.
know. But that's why my earlier first videos was who are the Adventists or something like what is Adventism, and it was basically taken up for Adventists. That's what my first video was, because I just had an urge to want to defend the faith.
Mhm.
I just saw, I didn't see any videos out really defending the faith. Well, as far as like young, coming from just the street and just regular YouTube videos,
Yeah.
my mom, you could see sermons all day, but I'm like, I wanted to put regular videos for regular people who, because I know like people like me didn't want to always just sit and listen to a sermon, or, you know, I wanted to take what is in a sermon and make it edible for brothers like me.
Mhm.
Make it edible, if a pastor's talking about the blood of Christ, how can I take that and make it edible, and for somebody who might just got through watching BET Uncut or Uncensored,
Yeah. Be
might
relatable.
exactly. So that became my YouTube journey right there, and so
Yeah. So.
then
Mhm.
now go ahead.
Yeah. So how do most people receive your videos and your ministry?
Uh, for the most part, like I said, it has its ups and downs
Mhm.
with real life. You'd
Mhm.
be surprised. Like I said, I've gotten so much envy, jealousy. Uh, I've had pastors actually, and elders in this church system around here actually say, tell the board meeting. One time I was sitting in a board meeting, and he apologized to me later, like a year later, but he had said, uh, I don't want nobody going to study with Joshua no more.
Mhm.
you should be holding Bible studies with people in the street. And it wasn't because like I'm teaching some stuff or I'm trying to start a church or nothing like that. He came to me and admitted to me later. He said, Josh, I used to try to always hold stuff at the church and nobody would come. And he said, here, I come into church, my dreads down to here, I smelling like a pound of weed, smoking cigarettes, you know what I'm saying? And he says, and here, you have people come from different churches and like a many times Sabbath, we would study together. And me and my mom actually started reading the Great Controversy with everybody. In like for 2 years, we read the Great Controversy together all the way through. Then we started on the Desire of Ages. But then we would go to dinner that Sabbath night, or we would bring food and just hold the dinner that night, then watch a movie together. It was like, honestly, we would grow it to be real friends outside of just sitting in the pews and saying, you know. But and back to your question, people online actually received it pretty good. Like a lot of the subscribers are non-Adventists, and they would just be like, because I would throw like on a documentary or a certain subject, like the Travis Scott situation that just happened last month. I would share my knowledge of the occult and the Illuminati, things that what they call Illuminati, secret societies, which I learned from Ellen G. White. You know what I'm saying? And I tell everybody, I say, there's a reason why the devil doesn't want people to doesn't want people to read Ellen White, throw the stigma, like, because like I say, I've been so hard-headed as a child. I didn't read Ellen White until I was 29 years old. And everything that I can back is Bible-based, like that I learned. I didn't learn nothing through Ellen. And I always stress that because people out there assume, oh, you're a Seventh-day Adventist, you're this Ellen follower. And I would say, well, I didn't read her until I was 29. Because my mom growing up, my mom had all these Ellen White books all over the place. And I was like, and like I said, I'd already had questions of our faith just from being a child and receiving hate and seeing what I was seeing taking place. So one day I was sitting there and I decided, when I was 29, decided to start reading the Great Controversy. Matter of fact, it was after I had the dream about Zechariah 3. I was like, hold on. And so I started reading the Great Controversy, and then I got mad at myself for not reading Ellen books earlier. I was like, are you kidding me? I would call I think I read the Great Controversy in like a couple weeks, and I'm a slow reader. Like I'm not a fast reader. If I read too fast, I feel like it hasn't stuck or I don't remember. I like to remember and take it in. But I couldn't help it because history is my favorite subject. And because, like I say, because of what I saw as a child and about a good and evil, the story of God has always been my favorite story to read, study, everything. So when I saw that it was dealing with history and real facts, it was what? I just because I love history, you know. And so, but online it was received pretty good. But in real life, I would say most of my friends and family really have never even checked on my YouTube.
Wow.
And this is the blessing. And I see why Christ, when he says in Mark 6, I want to say either Mark 4 or Mark 6, where it says, and the least miracles he could do was in his hometown.
Yeah.
He knew. And because think about my life, though, sis. Most people that grew up with me, most people that live with me around this church area, like when certain stuff happened with recently, like I said, when I was just fellowship, I won't tell what happened, what all went through it, you know, because it involved other people in my family. But let's just say that one of the elders helped break apart my home. So he wasn't safe around me for a while. Like the last time I went to that church, about 5 or 6 of them guarded him in the sanctuary. Anyway, and they still didn't touch me. They knew not to touch me. But anyway, I was so I can this little knucklehead boy who'd been locked up 27 times, stubborn in his ways, only listens to God, which plays an effect now. Like I listen to people now and I take into consideration now, but I don't follow the crowd at all. Like I'm not swayed at all. Like, and that's why I always say, even it led to the motto of my YouTube, which is the truth loves investigation. Never put salvation in the hands of any man. Some of my pastors as a child, and I wanted to get to this part too. I love how the Holy Spirit keeps saying, okay, now you can bring this up. You forgot to throw it in. When dealing with Henry Wright, one of the reasons it was no coincidence to me that he would become one of my favorite earthly teachers who I could relate to was because when he said that the wife of and I stress it, Malcolm Phipps. He was short, light skinned, and he was in the North Carolina conference. I don't know what to call it. I want to say it's the Black Conference, but it's for North Carolina Southeastern Conference. But Malcolm Phipps, if y'all heard of him, he was my favorite. Him and Pastor Parham. Pastor Paul, both of them are passed now. Pastor Parham's daughter, his mom used to babysit me, and his daughter, I had actually sent her a message on Facebook not too long ago asking about him, and that's when I found out he had passed. Pastor Parham and Pastor Phipps, because I had seen demons out of eyes as a child, face to face, wide awake, every day, like not just randomly. I used to really listen to sermons as a child, like, and one of his sermons, my favorite sermon that Pastor Phipps preached was about Jonah and why it was like, "O thou that sleepest." And he was talking about the part where Jonah was asleep while the ship is in turmoil. And the captain comes down and said, "Oh thou that, why are you sleeping?" You know what I mean? I love that sermon, but Malcolm Phipps was actually the pastor who, because Henry Wright was depicted as the bad child. And Malcolm Phipps, he admitted during one of his sermons, he said, "I wanted the other brother to work for me during the seminar, but he couldn't." The seminar, I think he was doing in Greensboro or Charlotte. And he said, but the other brother couldn't, so they sent Henry. And it's amazing how they look at us knuckleheads, but how God chooses the knuckleheads. But so they send Henry, and he said, "No, I did not want Henry." He said, "I wanted the other." He said, there was already a reputation about Henry being the bad son. So he said, but Henry and his Malcolm's wife, they became close. She saw something in Henry as a young man, and she talked Henry into going into ministry. Off of him helping out with the seminar or the camp meeting that summer. It was either a seminar or camp meeting. Oh yeah, and I remember, look, just from my memory, they used to hold the camp meetings. I want to say it was in South Carolina, either Orangeburg or Anderson, South Carolina. But that was the first time I saw C.D. Brooks, because I remember his sideburns. And all the kids, my friends, I never forgot. My friends used to ask me, it was like, "Come on, Josh, why are you going to go to the grown-up tent?" Like, I never used to like to go to the little kid tent because they used to do the little kid stories. And by this time, like I say, I'd already studied 4 religions on my own. And the Bible, I was a daily read. And so I love the deep stuff. So I remember sitting there, I'm front row at who's this guy? And I remember his sideburns. He had the thing, and they were sold with the line. Because I was like, oh, look at his sideburns. That's cool. And I love the way he preached. Yeah, and that was my first time hearing C.D. Brooks as a little boy. But yeah, so I was that little boy who used to pay attention to sermons and sit there, and because I used to take it all in, because I used to want to know how to fight these demons that I see on a regular basis. Right. And so, and I'll be honest with you, sis, and that's why I'm so transparent with my whole life and everything, is because it was already being depicted as a bad child or even child. My life was already transparent in a way. And so even I was laughing and joking with the Lord, because he told me not too long ago, after the dream of judgment, he said, "Josh, I want you're a messenger, and we're all called to be royal priests and messengers. We all are called. I'm no better than anybody else. And that's why I love, and I feel like I'm worse than 99.9%. And I don't want, and I could tell stuff to prove it. So, but the things that even I still wrestle with, that became wired in me. But I was laughing with the Lord when he said, "Josh, you're a messenger of mine, and it's time for you to stop running." And I said, Lord, you know they're gonna say I'm crazy. You know, and I never forget this first response. Didn't hesitate. They already call you crazy. I said, yeah, that's true. That's true. He said, they already say I'm crazy. I said,
Yeah.
yeah, that's true. But I could see how, and I spent all this time of telling my childhood experience, because it has everything to do with who I am, what I am, and what I'm going through today, and how I teach today, how I am today. Uh, like I say, God is still my best friend. Uh, and like I say, I stress that. I may, so what if I may be a messenger of the Lord? I like how Paul says, I have to keep my body under subjection.
Yeah.
Be it that I may preach to all of you, and then I myself be a castaway.
Yeah.
You know, so even me just saying I'm a messenger of the Lord and things of that nature, it means nothing, because we're all called to deliver messages. Messages, fellow servants. But like I say, all the things that has happened to me in my life, and that's just an inch, I would have never, they had to happen just for me to even start to believe that I'm worthy enough to even teach someone else about God, about the Father. But that's my best friend, and it's like I said, I used to question him on, Lord, why did you allow me to see all of that stuff before, and wait so long for me to see you, to see your arm. And he always take me back to that little bird, and oh yeah. And when I found out, I gotta say this, like I say, because when I saw the little bird, and I remember I told you, I used to, a lot of people be like, yo, I was adopted, the Lord adopted me, and da da da. And when I came across Romans 9, dealing with the adoption, I cried like a little baby in that jail cell. I cried like a little baby. And that's how I didn't even know without even turning to it. When I came across Romans 9, and Paul he's talking about the Gentiles who are grafted in. It broke me like a little baby, you know what I'm saying? Because I'm like, you really did adopt
me. Yeah.
Here I am, just feel like I'm telling a lie to my friends, so I can not feel like I don't have a family, so I can be like, yeah, I got a family too. And God is saying, no, Josh,
you really do have a family.
yeah. And when I say the Bible has been an open book to me, there's so much I have to share. Like, I'm about to start a series on God the Father, and there's so much that he told me, Josh, you're just holding on to all this stuff for yourself, because it was my hate for people. Like, once I got this fellowship from the church, once certain things that happened just recently, and I went through so much hate in this area. Like, not only did they disfellowship me unjustly, now I did some things, I'll just go on and say, because I don't want to just make it seem like they were, it was all on them. No, it definitely wasn't. And this was like, I want to say 5 years ago. uh my wife and this elder had a relationship going on behind my back, and they were spreading rumors about me, and so once I found out about that, I was broken. All of this happened in 1 month. So I found out about that, and I'm broken. And I found out about these rumors that was going on behind, that this elder was making up about me behind the church. Now, they never slept together, but they just had an extra friendly relationship. And my wife, keep a secret from it. And I found out about all this other stuff that's going on, these rumors that they had spread. And come to find out, there were other leaders in the church who was with it too. And they had contacted certain people in other churches to try to stop people from, all this stuff is going on behind my back. Then this lady invites me over her house. Men do not go by yourself. So this is all in the same month. So I find out this from my wife, this. And so me and this lady had relations. And then I cut it off, and I tell certain people. And so I'm like, look, whatever actions y'all want to take, go on and take them. Because I felt bad anyway. I already felt like dirt anyway. So I said, take the actions y'all want to take. And they said, yep, so I'm just fellowship you again. Even though the elder, who had a relationship for about 3 months behind my back, helped break down, no, he just got censored. And then come to find out, it was his second, third time. developing this type of relationship with a married woman in the church.
Wow. Yeah.
Are y'all gonna wait to the fifth time? But anyway, so like I said, I felt bad anyway, so I just threw myself at the mess. It's like, here, you know, do this, and I wanted to say that because it wasn't all on them, but I was just broken. So after that, I pretty much left, stopped teaching. If you look at my YouTube videos, that's when I really stopped even teaching on YouTube. I stopped teaching on YouTube.
So how long ago was this?
It was almost 5 years ago.
Oh, okay.
But if you go back in my videos, you'll see where there's I think in the past 5 years I've only done like 30 videos. I would say 30. And out of 560, that just shows you how I immediately pumped the brakes. No, I want to say this coming up year will be the 5th year. So this was 4 years ago. So I stopped and I tried to go worship at another church, salvage my family, worship at another church. We thought new environment, but a lot of the same people that were reaching out. Every church I went to, they would actually reach out to the people like the pastors, the elders, and say all this stuff. Josh is headstrong. He did this. He don't listen. He's violent. So almost every church I went to. And so not only that, and then I was like, well, I'm done with people, because then that little boy started back drinking, started back smoking, and that little boy started coming back out. And that's when these physical problems started, which I had no idea what it was. You know what my mom used to say to me through this is what my mom would come to me and she would say, the devil just doesn't want you around, period, Josh. Like I say, I stopped my Sabbath afternoon Bible studies. And so I started getting these issues. I started wilding out online. And I had a pastor tell me one time, yo, just don't say the stuff online. And I told him, I said, nah, I'm not fake. Because I was preaching for him in certain churches. And I'm like, nah, man. And I'm already in a bad mood. So I was like, nah, I'm not fake like you. Because I already knew he was putting up a facade too. Like me and him would talk. He would get real with me. Like he had caught his wife going through something similar. So he was like, yeah, I went and tried to fight this one elder, and I went over here and tried to do this. And so when he started coming at me, I'm like, how you gonna come at me and we both going through? And I know, but anyway, but I said, nah, man, I can't be fake like that, man. I said, I'm not gonna play with the Lord like that. And I've always been like that my whole life. It's like, either I'm gonna be hot or cold.
Right.
I'm not gonna do the lukewarm. So that's why in certain videos, whenever I would sober up, then I would start teaching again, and something else would happen. I would go back down that road of drinking, getting high. I would stop teaching, sober up, start teaching, go back out, start teaching. So I got rebaptized in the church, in case anybody was wondering. After all of that happened, I did get baptized in the church.
And have you forgiven those people?
Yeah.
Okay.
I've forgiven them, even though they didn't ask for it.
Yeah.
Which was like even Ellen White said in the manual, if you help destroy your family and you don't even ask or come to me, even in a phone call and things of that nature, let's just say when you're friends with people in church, how some church systems can be, it's not every church, but let's just say he's still an elder. He's still an elder at that church. Because some of them would even ask me, me and the pastor of that church, me and him are good friends, because he pastors the church that I go to now. He pastors the church that I go to now. But he even asked me, he said, man, you're invited to come back. I said, no, man. I said, no hard feelings, but there's several of those people, and the people who are spreading the rumors about me behind my back, none of them really ever apologized either. And I said it's cool, because I knew it wasn't them. I knew it was who I've been fighting since I was a child.
Right.
And a lot of envy, went into it too. Who is this little knucklehead that never been to college, never went to church school, and as a college, learns all this stuff. Like I was even told to stop teaching the sanctuary. Like they did not want me to teach at all, because of my influence. And it's crazy, because when I went through those things. And once I got rebaptized, I had people in other Adventist churches in Nashville kept telling me, Josh, start your own church. Josh, start. I said, no, because I prayed about it. And the Holy Spirit said, no. I'm like, no, I'm not. Because in no type of way did I want to look like I'm veering off from the body, you know, in no type of way. And so I would be like, no, I would tell the people, no, I'm not starting a church. And there was one church after me, and when I got rebaptized, I made it special with my kids, me, my wife, and my kids. We all got rebaptized together, and my kids wanted to because they was excited for dad coming back in church. Because like I say, the old man before I used to go, you know, in the street, I was a problem. Let's just say with my temperament, I wasn't like other people who hide behind and just get mad in the room. I didn't mind standing out in the street with my pistol and, you know, let's just say things of that nature. I did, even in my bad state, and it happened with certain people. They would make a comment even on Facebook, and I would knock them. What did you say? I didn't, you know, because and sometimes people will get comfortable, and I tell people that all the time. Don't get comfortable behind your device and act out or say things that you wouldn't say to a person face to face. I said that's one of the traps and dangers of social media is you can act so pious when you're sitting on your phone with, you know, or you can act, it's easy to act high and mighty when you're behind your phone but when you're face to face and you can actually talk with somebody, you can see that, hey, this person really isn't in a good mood. They might just be down and depressed. You can actually see things, but there's so many traps to social media. But anyway, one of the church that I attend, and now is the church that when I was going through this with all these area churches, when everybody washed their hands with me, their members would message me and say, Josh, you're welcome here with us. You're welcome here with us. You're welcome here with us. So once me and my kids got rebaptized, that's the church where we went to. And Elder Jesse Helms, Pastor Wayne Long, y'all know I love y'all. You know, I love y'all to death. You know, especially Elder Helms, you know, because through that all, he's seen it all. And like I said, I'm very transparent. And as a child, and certain people couldn't get it, and I was criticized for this, and I know it was wrong. But as a child, because I used to have so many people would tell me, I love you, but when the bad side of me, they would wash their hands of me. Yeah. What I learned to do was I would show them the bad side of me beforehand. To say, like, if a whole bunch of people would crowd around me and I started feeling overwhelmed, I would show the bad side of them. Or if I think I'm surrounded by a whole bunch of snakes, I would be myself and see. It's like I would shake my own tree, and just to see. And she told me, because she's not on Facebook, but she told me, she said, are you doing that on purpose? Because she would hear Josh be saying this and he be going off on person on this, but you'll be surprised how many people wash their hands. I mean, I hear before I'm preaching in 5 different states, all these different churches. I can't charge people. That's not in my blood. I can't do it. Like how people, some minister have their cash app and they keep mentioning their cash. Like, okay, you got to keep your cash app, but that's between them and God anyway. Especially, you know, but I know some of them already have good jobs and all of that. But anyway, I just feel like if the word is freely given, how do I look like charging you for the word that's given to me? You know what I'm saying? It's not mine to pay, have you pay anyway, but a workman is worthy of his wages. So if that's the way I'm earning my living, of course. But so my mom even knew what I was doing. And then I admitted after a while, I said, look, y'all, I'm sick. I'm going through a whole bunch of stuff with the church here. I let it all out online. Everything I just told y'all about what happened with me, the church, my family, these elders, I told all of that online. I laid it all out. I said, look, I'm going through a whole bunch of stuff. My body's breaking down on me. I said, I'm depressed. I'm wilding out. I said, I think I got lung cancer. I don't know what's wrong with me. And I said, I think, you know, everything is catching up to me. And it brought a heavy depression because I got 6 kids. And not only am I the one raising my kids because I run my business from home, but I, you know, I'm still making most of the money in the house. So I'm depressed, and you'll be surprised. Most of them they were upset. Let me just say, a lot of the people who washed their hands on me, who I thought were friends in the church, the up and down was so different from my friends who I grew up and met in different prison systems, ran the street with. They were the ones who saw me acting out and would just message me, Josh, I love you. You're going through something, hit me up. What's going on with you, Josh? Hit me up, man, call me. I got so much of that from my brothers in the street. To where a lot of my Adventist brothers and sisters, here I am, money out of my own pocket, teaching on a regular basis for years. I never charge. It just feels funny inside. But anyway, and I knew God would always take care of me. Most washed their hands up. And I ended up making a video about it on my YouTube called The Curse of the Social Media Christian. Because that's when I started to notice that a lot of them were just Christians on social media. But in real life, matter of fact, this is what caused me to make the video. So now I ain't gonna say all of them, but just a large percentage wash their hands on me, which I already knew certain mind states. And I knew it wasn't them, for we wrestle not against flesh and blood. So it wasn't them at all. And I knew some of them were just disappointed. And I used to tell people, don't put me on no pedestal.
Yeah.
And, you know what I'm saying? Because, and I'm like, no, you cause so when I do have a problem or I fall, you're going to look at me like I did something unhuman like. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, I didn't tell you to put me on no pedestal. I'm human like you. I hurt like you. I get frustrated like you. But that's not an excuse to do anything. But anyway, the difference, no matter of fact, once I told everybody about my sickness and what really happened, a lot of those elders and ministers from other churches who washed their hands of me sent me messages of how mad they were that I was doing it on purpose. Because then I started, when they found out that I was shaking my tree on purpose, because some of the posts and stuff I would post it on purpose, just nasty stuff, just pushing people away. Basically, with the little troubled, broken mind Joshua, the little boy in the locker room, I was pushing everybody away. For real. After I went through all of that, with being this fellowship, my wife, the church, the elders, and so many other churches, I was tired of, like I say, that old hate for people started coming back up in me because I started back drinking again. And so I started trying to push everybody away from it. I was like, look, I don't want it no more. I don't want the so-called, YouTube fame. I quit my TV show that was reaching over 1 million homes. I quit my TV show in Nashville. I stopped on my YouTube. And like I say, I stopped preaching and teaching. And then I started intentionally just putting out hateful, nasty stuff for people to leave me alone. I remember even saying a post, yeah, if you don't wash your hands of me yet, you will soon. And my mom used to say, Josh, for real, my wife would cry sometimes. She would be like, why you post that? Because she knew I was just lying, wanting to make people mad. And she was like, stop, why are you doing that? Stop. But my mind was already broke and I was fed up with people. I call it the Jeremiah. Like after they dropped Jeremiah in that sewage system.
Yeah.
Can you imagine being dropped in the city's sewage? You got boo-boo in your mouth. And I remember when Jeremiah said, I'm not teaching no more. I'm done. But he said it was like a fire shut up in my bones. And that's how it was with me. Like I was like, Father, I'm done. I'm not teaching. Because a lot of people would message me, like Sister Carmen, Jamal and Shabar. A lot of my friends in the church who never washed their hands up, despite of all the shaking I'm doing, all the hateful stuff. I'm like little Lamarcus Thomas, love you, bro. That's my little soldier, man. No matter how much shaking I'm doing, trying to get people to hate me and not like me no more, they would not. They're like, nope, no matter what you say, Josh, we're gonna love you. And that's why, let's just say, like yourself, sis. When I say that, let's just say if I am a messenger of the Lord, I always tell people my testament is that you really do live the gospel.
Right.
You saw the ugliness of me and you didn't wash your hands of me. You just said, Josh, I love you. I'm human too. You're living the gospel, but anyway. And so once some got mad when I admitted the truth,
Mm.
And you'll be surprised at how many messages hit my phone. I'm talking about long messages, short messages from elders and minister, my elder and minister friends who had already washed their hands of me, but when they found out that I was doing it on purpose to get people to really just leave me alone and stop asking me to speak, leave me alone, stop putting me on a pedestal, you know, uh, they got upset. You're wrong and this and that. And every single one of them, I had a copy and paste reply, except to one who was a dear friend of mine. And I told her it hurt even more. And I told her, I said, while I was posting all this stuff and I was just hurting, you never once took just 1 minute, none of them, just to say, I love you. Like,
Mm.
like
Yeah.
my partners in the street, you
Yeah.
know. And I said, not once did you just, I said, it could have took just 1 minute. I said, my partner that I went to prison with, my boy that sells drugs right now is living the gospel more than you. And I said, we
Oh.
would sit in the pulpit and we would point and we'll use them as an example of being far from the vine when they're closer to the vine. I said, my testament to God is they're closer to the vine. I said, how can you, I said, you took, like her message was pretty long, right? I said, you just took 30, 40 minutes to send this to me. And you couldn't take 1 minute to tell me you love me.
Mm.
And I sent that with a couple other elders who I was very close to in Ohio and Kentucky. And I told them all, I sent them all the copy and paste. I just copy and pasted because not one had sent me a message just to say, Josh, you going through anything? What's up, man? Not one. So I said, next time, I said, if you can send 30, 40 minutes to tell me and to condemn me, just take a minute to say you love me sometimes. You know what I'm saying? And that's why it really opened my eyes. Like I say, from when I look at my whole life now, when I look at everything I've been through in life, even now, it taught me how not to react. I had to learn, Josh, you're not in prison. Like I say, one of my first was always fighting with my hands. I had to learn, not to bite everybody's head off.
Mm-hmm.
That you don't knock on every door if somebody gets smart with you, you know. But it showed me what to do and what not to do as a child of God, on a high level. And that's when, if you look through my YouTube videos, that's when I made the video, The Curse of the Social Media Christian. And even still then, like the pain was so hurt, like from all the pain from my family and then from church. And then I got in touch with my dad again. Like me and my dad fought. When I got out of the boys' home at 17, me and him fought. And I chose not to see him again for 25 years. And my sister found me. And we got linked back together. And then he started coming at me crazy again last year. And
Mm-hmm.
so we don't deal with each other again no more. So it was like all of this stuff, it just accumulated to where I got like Jeremiah. I said, I'm not teaching people no more, Lord. Like, no, I don't care. And people, that's why I brought up Sister Carmen. I remember one time she asked me, she said, Josh, are you upset with God? I said, no, not at all. And I'll be honest with you, sis. And I'm winding down. I hope, I
Mm-hmm.
appreciate it.
Yeah. You're
know,
good. You're good.
I said, uh, I said, no, I'm not upset with God at all. See, God had been my only lifeline
Mm.
my whole life since I sat in that room and I said I hate everybody. God was the only bright spot in my life.
Mm.
And I really, and I say my kids are too, but it was more the effect of God because my kids didn't live with me. But then I was so scarred up here. I always use analogy, my brain was broken.
Mm.
It's already so broken that when I got sick and I'm thinking I'm dying, it made it worse. You know what I'm saying? Because here I'm thinking, I kept seeing my kids at my coffin, my daughter crying at the funeral. And here I still got people pointing their fingers, Josh, you're no good, This is recently, well, in the past 3 years. This is in the past 3-4 years. So when she asked me that, and I said, no, I said, sis, I said, there's two things. And at this time, she didn't know none of my life like I shared with you. I said, God, I said, I thought God washed his hands. And I said, if he washes his hands on me, I'd rather just die and be done away with, because
Yeah.
the only bright spot in my life. And I said, that thought that God had washed his hands on me dropped me to the depression. It dropped me to the point to where, if you was friends with me on Facebook in the past 4 years, it brought to some of the point, like in the past, like I've been in front of 5 judges in the past 4 years, and 3 of them we had it out in the courtroom. Like I wasn't that scary criminal. Like I was already, it was like, F you, judge, and bailiff was like, whatever. And I'm like, all right, bailiff, come over here. I'm dropping you. And they already have in my manuscript very violent. Like a cop showed me that one time. He said, do you know what pops up on your name when I pull you over? Because I was smart with him too, because he had said something slick. And like I say, I've always been a fighter, and I know what I can do, even though I'm small, and it shocked people. Because anyway, and he said, by my name, it said very violent. And it said, take caution. Like whenever he pulled up and showed my history, he said, look what shows up by your name. And so I'm snapped, like, and so in the past 4 years, when I say it took me to a heavy depression, when I'm cold, I'm cold. And there's a beautiful logic behind Christ saying, be hot or cold, because when you're cold, you yearn for heat.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to just sit out in the cold.
Right.
You see somebody warm, you're sitting there from the outside like, I wouldn't mind that little heat. So there's a beautiful logic by Christ saying, don't be straddle the fence, be genuine. Either you're with me or you're not. You know what I'm saying? So I said, yeah. I said, without God, my mind, my little broken mind, let's just say that little boy in that room, a lot of people, they saw the little boy in that room in real life and online when I was going through that depression.
Yeah.
That little boy, he woke back up. And then the two.
So have you fully healed, like at this point in your life?
Well, yeah, and I say, and that's why I say, because I stopped teaching because I had a hate for people. Like I said, it was hate for people, and I thought God had washed his hands on me. So it reached the point this past year where me and my wife were getting divorced, and she told me I'd tell about, but she's here right now. She actually is visiting for this weekend right now. But anyway, and I promised her I wouldn't put it on Facebook, but here I am telling you on the podcast. So there you go. She know I talk too much sometimes. Anyway, so once we're going through, once we started the divorce process back in March, I miss my kids so dearly, and was missing her dearly too. So I went through that heavy depression again, and the Holy Spirit, I dreamt of a lot of it, and he reminded me of everything. And he said, Josh, just what we read in Thyatira when he says, if I don't choose God, he said, Josh, because he expended all of heaven to get me even to step in the church at an old age from the stuff that I've done in my life. And I see why in Thyatira, remember I said I saw the woman, it was the rod, it was almost like a choice. And when I look at Thyatira, the best way to explain it is where it says, they will go through certain stuff. If I didn't, basically he said, if I don't choose him, I'm gonna go through way worse. Like I probably will die a horrible death because of my sickness. My kids will turn out a certain way. And the Holy Spirit had to shake me. Like I dealt with self-hate so much. Self-hate. He was like, I remember one night here, it's like the Holy Spirit just shaking me and saying, Josh, you're chosen. You saw the arm of the Lord. You're chosen. And when I look at Zechariah 3, he reminded me of Zechariah 3 says, and that's what caused the healing. Even in Zechariah chapter 3, and I see that's one of the jokes when I was like, Lord, if I tell people that's me in Zechariah 3, they're gonna think I'm extra crazy. I said, so I just tell them I dreamt it. But even when Satan is there accusing them, God tells them, says, isn't this a brand plucked out of the fire? meaning this guy has never been happy. He was born in affliction. You're still accusing him. He's already, but we're gonna beat him down even more. You know what I'm saying? And so just kept. And when I read the end of Zechariah, the Holy Spirit kept reminding. So it was just one night back in March where the Holy Spirit is just really shaking and saying, Josh, why choose death when we have this special role laid out for you? And I can't lie, I cried and I cried because I thought God had washed his hands. And that's why when I brought up my dream about judgment a month and a half ago, he reiterated to me that the kids, the first words when the kids said, Josh, he's opened the books, their next words to me was, your name is in the book. Because the longest, with, I thought,
God gave you that confirmation that he hasn't let go of you.
Exactly. And so that was all I needed to say, even though the Holy Spirit shook me up back in March, and that's what started my change, really, be going sober, things of that nature. And then in July, I was supposed to get my kids again, and something happened with the court system, and I haven't seen them up to this point in 11 months now. No, it's been 10 months, 10 and a half months now. And so I went through depression again and started drinking and smoking, and then the Holy Spirit shook me again, said, what are you doing? Do you want? And then that came through my 5-year-old. So it was like me sobering up these past 2 months, and then God giving me the affirmation. It's basically, I reached the point where I said, Lord, and this is before the affirmation in the dream. I said, Lord, I'd rather choose you. I said, you know what? I get depressed. I started really doing my own poor mental health work on my on myself, like realizing, okay, Josh, you have an issue. Cuckoo, you have an issue. Let's deal with it. What are your triggers? I spent this whole past year going dissecting my childhood, realizing, wow, when I get this way, I shake my own tree. When I think I'm around a whole bunch of people who don't like me, I'll go on and show an ugly side of me just to make you not like me even more. Or, if I think you're a snake. I used to do all that crazy stuff because my brain was broke. And then, so it was like going through these steps and with my mother, who was instrumental, going through these steps with my mother, talking with her and seeing it in myself, being honest eyes, and really getting to that point. And I said, you know what, Lord? And I'm reminded of the 3 Hebrew boys where I said, even if I perish, and I don't, because I don't deserve heaven, and I'm not doing none of this for heaven. None of this teaching isn't for heaven at all. Like I'm to grips with it, and I'm cool with it. I said, Lord, I used to have such a negative influence on people so much. I said, I owe you every inch of me. And I hate what the devil did to my life and my family's life so much that this is my way of I would say fighting back, is if I could show as many people as much light and the things that God opens up his word to me, because this is such an open book to me. So many jewels, he just says, check out this jewel, Josh. You see this jewel, Josh? And so many jewels he just opens up to me. And I'm like, if I can help anybody, and that's my way of getting back at Satan for what he robbed me of my childhood. And I felt I've never had a life because of how I'm wired. Like, I hate the fact, I always talk about boxing and fighting. Some people think I'm in love with it, but I hate it because it is taking away so many opportunities. I've hurt so many people, and things of that nature. And then the things I wrestle with from day to day. And I often sit there like, Lord, forgive me. And how could you ever use me? And I think, like I said, when I told Doug Batchelor when I met him, I said, I was that demoniac, one of the demoniacs, because it was 2. I'm like, I was that demoniac crying in the tomb, and that was me. But then the Lord Holy Spirit always says, every time I'm thinking that, he always says, but they were the first missionaries of the New Testament church. First missionaries of the New Testament church. So all the opportunities I might have missed because of my temperament and everything, I told somebody the other day, I'm blue check verified. Like, and I see why Paul kept telling people what his about. If you look at a lot of his sermons, he often brought up the road of Damascus. And he was just often trying to tell people about which authority he taught, because his reputation was so far going above him that it was hard for people to believe it anyway. You know what I'm saying? Like, weren't you the one who had Stephen killed? You know, so he often had to tell him, like, look, God chose me to do this. This isn't me going crazy. Like, you know, he often had to try to remind him of why. But I see why God. So would help the healing. And I think that's why the little kids, and even in that dream, a month ago, the first thing they said was, "Oh, you're in the book." They had to stress it to me, you know, and it's joyful. It's like everything that it's like, okay, Lord, then it's worth it. And I said,
Mm.
I used to say sometimes, some people can't imagine living your life and not wanting to reminisce or go down memory lane, or you have to tell yourself, like, sis, I'll tell you, I work out twice a day and I work out for hours at times. Like, if you see me on Facebook, I just dug out a fire pit by myself, and then I moved the dirt and made a 27-foot flower garden by myself. I do these things to stay busy, to keep my mind, because I realized that the devil and his demons, I honestly believe he assigns demons to each of us who are threats. And if he knows you're insecure about something, or you're going through an issue, that demon's job might be just to remind you of that on an everyday basis.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like you got to stay busy, keep your mind on the Lord and things beautiful, to keep your mind off of your past and this hurt that these demons are steady whispering and hounding in your ear. And so,
That's so true.
honestly, sis, it's like, if my reward is to be, of everything I went through in life, is to be a messenger of the Lord and to play a critical part in these last days and times, I don't want to tell nobody. See, the Holy Spirit told me to say it. And I'm like, no, Lord, they already think I'm crazy. He said, they already think you're crazy. So that's still even more. But look, a month and a half ago, when I saw that dream about judgment, he said, Josh, I said, I be biting my tongue because I know how people take it. I know how people take it. It's like, no, Lord, let me shut it up. But a lot of, I'm the third Elijah. So I
Mm-hmm.
said, and we all are included, even as a movement. But the first two were men. So to not think that God is going to not switch up and have a third one come and clear the way for his path is to not read Revelation 7. But where an angel comes in, which angel after refers to his messenger, says, hold on, we have to seal his
Right.
children. And I believe that's talking about judgment of the living, judgment of the church. Because how else are you going to seal his children if a judgment doesn't take place?
Mm-hmm.
And right after the sealing of the children, then it goes into tribulations and things for the world, where the world is now going through their probationary period. And I believe that judgment on the living has started. But God telling me, to answer your question, if everything I went through equates to me being special in God's eyes, just being loved and to be used as a tool of his, a willing, open vessel to be used at his discretion, his mercy, and I'm happy with it. And the issues of this broke little mind that I have to deal with every day is done to keep me humble.
Mm.
And
Like the thorn in your flesh.
yeah, my mother says that all the time, especially with my sickness. She always says, that's just the thorn inside. And it does. It really does. Like, God knows how to humble a fighter. You touch
Mm-hmm.
his, break his body. And
Mm.
I know that's why I got this sickness
Mm.
uh, in my body. It's to humble me and keep me humble, and which it did, and which it does. And so it's definitely like, uh, I can't lie. So it's like an even exchange. Well, really, it's
Mm.
like, okay, I didn't have a life. I always say that, a period. And I don't blame nobody, because I still was making the choices I made.
Right.
I can't say because of them. I
Mm-hmm.
did because of them. No, I take all full accountability. But I'm like, even though I feel like I've never had a life, and because of the way I'm wired, like I still, realizing the other day, I said, man, I'm free. I remember when I realized I was free to go buy tater tots. Since this was like in the midst of this past 3 years, I said, man, I wish I had some taste. Some said, Josh, go buy the tater tots. Why are you gonna sit here and act like you can't go buy tater tots? You are free. It's like the Holy Spirit just shaking me. You are free. But
Mm-hmm.
that incarcerated mind state, travels
Mm-hmm.
in ways. But I'm like, if the exchange is for me, it's like it's equal. It's like, okay, I didn't have a life here, but I can only imagine if I stay faithful
Mm-hmm.
with God and I stay as a willing vessel, willing to do whatever God tells me to do, whatever He tells me to drop, go ahead and drop it. Whatever habits He tells me to let go, let them go. If I stay that way, then I'll have eternity to make up for it. And I'm like, wow. And I'll go on and tell you, sis, because my next series, when I'm talking about the father is dealing with his house, for the longest, I was laughed at for my idea of heaven. And this is the last thing I'll say to you, and then you can end it how you please.
Yeah. Yeah.
My idea of heaven since a little boy. I've dreamt every night. I remember one of my first dreams, and I'm always dreaming. And because of my life, and like I say, how I am, everything I've been through, like I say, everything I've been through is here every day. My idea of heaven since I was little is, Lord, I want to climb up on your throne and go to sleep with you. I said, because I always can imagine if I could sleep next to God, I could imagine what dream I could have. And I remember one time during AYS, I was a teenager, and I hadn't even been to church that day. I just stopped through for AYS, because like I say, I used to do what I wanted to do. And I stopped through for AYS to see my friends, to see my brother, my sister. They was always good. But anyway, and I'm sitting there, and one of the elders, he's asking all the kids about their idea of heaven. And I remember I told him, I said, I want to go to heaven and go to sleep in the throne with God. And they kind of laughed. People laugh, because his first comments was, and I won't say his name because he loved me to death, and I love him to death to this day. When I started preaching and teaching, I did a YouTube video on the wedding, the parable of the wedding, and he was one of the first elders to watch it. Somebody else said, hey, let's watch, and they named this other pastor who's well known in the church, and he said, no, I want to listen to Josh, what Josh has to say about the wedding parable. And so that always meant the world to me because I just started teaching on YouTube. But anyway, so they started laughing because he said, so you telling me you want to go to heaven and go to sleep? Because I can see why that would seem funny. He
Yeah.
said, he has that type of humor. He said, so you want to go to heaven to go to sleep? Okay. You know what I'm saying? But no, again, they didn't know I was tired of being awake because every second I was dealing with my reality.
Yeah.
My memories, all of that, And so and so like I said, when I pieced all these dots together in my life, when I looked at the churches, when Christ is talking to the 7 churches, and he says, oh, he come with me, him that overcome him. Sis, can you read? Please read. Because I'm telling you, I'll be blown away. When the Holy Spirit tells me this stuff, I would not come on here in front of the world and say I'm the third Elijah or I'm a messenger. Yeah. But everybody to poke fun, pride, even though I'm used to that anyway, and say he's crazy and don't listen to him no more. If God didn't do certain things, can you please read? When he's talking about Laodicea, the last day church, in the day in which we live, what he says is the reward of the righteous. It's in Revelation, and this is how I knew to go straight to it. Revelation, chapter 3. Please read verse 21.
Of course. So Revelations 3, verse 21. overcometh will I grant to sit with me in my throne, even as I overcame and sat down with my Father in his throne. Yeah.
I cried like a baby. I always
Yeah. I mean, the
mention
sleeping part is not there, but everything else.
yeah. Because I always mention to people, because I don't want people to be thinking, oh, Josh think he tough. That's why I'm not scared to tell people, yeah, I cried when I thought of that. Because it's like, yeah, I did, because I thought of that. That was my idea of heaven as a child.
Wow. Yeah.
Heaven as a child, I said, Father, I just want to, if I go to heaven, if I'm going to heaven, I'm going to climb up in your throne and I'm going to go to sleep next to you. I want to sit with you and go to sleep.
Well, that's a sweet thought. That's a sweet thought. Very sweet.
Yeah, as a child, I never had the parents to lay next to, none of that stuff. So God was my parent.
Yeah.
So when I read that, like, if you could understand me sitting and I'm like, I was like, are you kidding me? I went crazy. I'm crying. I'm reading it again. Did I read it right?
It's one of those loving promises.
Yes. Yes. So I'm actually in a good space. And it's like, of course, telling people, he tells me to reiterate about which authority that I teach and to let people know what his relationship, about seeing his arm on January 22nd, 1999, about being the third Elijah, preparing the Father.
What do you mean exactly by the third Elijah?
There was, he said there will become a forerunner who prepared the same way with John the Baptist, when Christ said, this is the second Elijah. This is Elijah crying in the wilderness. But what made him, when Christ said this is the greatest prophet among prophets, it wasn't the fact that he was better than all other prophets, but it was the fact that he had the privilege to prepare the way for the Messiah. And he had, can you imagine? You get to baptize Christ. Mercy.
Sorry about the noise.
No, you're fine. You're fine. I didn't had you on here for it. But it's like you so many millions. This with the Holy Spirit when he was shaking me and said, Josh, you saw the arm of the Lord. So many men had prayed. Let's go through the 6,000 years the earth has been created, right? And you go from Genesis up till John the Baptist. Can you imagine how many righteous men who raised their families, good men, used to pray for just a little bit of to see God or to commune with him on a personal basis, like with the Lord. And here John the Baptist gets to touch him, hold him, and baptize him, And so it was so that's what made what I believe what Christ meant when he said he is the greatest prophet, because he got the greatest honor and privilege. And so and he also spoke about another Elijah coming, which is the forerunner, who will pave the way, in which I believe it's a movement too, like the church teaches, like the church can teach. It's a movement of people who paved the way for the Lord. But God is specific in how we follow suit. There was an Elijah, and then there was John the Baptist, who was the second Elijah. And he says there will become a third Elijah. So just to pave the way, and it says he will turn the hearts of the children back to the Father. God the Father is very, how should I say, not looked at in Christianity today. Satan would love for everybody to just focus on Christ as the Lamb. And when you just see Christ and you don't focus on the Father, you only see him as the Lamb, and not realizing after the cross and that transition takes place, soon he's going to come back as the Lion. He's going to come back as Michael. Right. As captain of the Lord's host. Right. So the only way you see him as Michael as captain of the Lord's host is he has to be coming to execute for his father. You know, now here comes the father. The father deems justice. So it's like Satan doesn't want people to focus on the father. You know, he would rather people just keep focusing on the blood. Yes, I'm forgiven. Yes, I'm forgiven. It's like I said, once you start back to focus on the father and realize that this whole war is Satan attacking the father. And that's why the third Elijah is to call all the hearts back to the Father.
Okay.
And I told somebody, I said, and that sobered me up too. Like I said, because of what I saw as a child, seeing the great whore out as a child, it's not play to me. Like when I had that dream and I knew that was a good angel in that dream, it's because I've often fought bad angels in that dream. And people don't want to. A lot of people, because it's not tangible or they can't physically see, in which the spirit of prophecy said if men's could, a lot of men's heart would fail them for fear. They can see the darkness that's really around them on a regular basis. But because people can't see and touch, it's almost like they believe, but they don't believe. Because if they really knew that probation was starting on the living, like, sister, I cried. I jumped online to tell because of what I've seen as a child, knowing that these things aren't play. And then I'm like, I could only imagine Christ appearing as the lion. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I see him as the lamb, but he's not coming back as the lamb.
Right.
I don't want to be on that other side of his anger. I don't want to see the devil, I believe, does not want Christ, which I'm walking into when I do the series on the Father, it's going to be about Christ being Michael and all of that, because people don't want to see Christ as the lion. Like, and I'm gonna sit, and I'm a hush. If you notice the description of the two against Christ and Satan, he says Satan walks around as a lion seeking whom he may devour. He's not a lion. Christ is. So think about how many times, and I used to hear people, like I said, my eyes have always been different how I look at the word since I was a child. And I would hear people all the time, we use the analogy, well, you know, Satan is a lion. He's a lion. You better be careful. He's as a roaring lion. But Christ is the lamb. Their whole demeanor changes when they see Christ as just the lamb. And I used to always say in my head, especially now recently, since probation is starting on the living, I'm like, it only said Satan as a lion. So he isn't even a lion. But Christ, I saw how if people don't rewire their thinking to think that the lamb has at the cross, the lamb, that was the role the lamb played. Now, the lion king is coming back to claim his territory. The king, it's like, if you don't change your thinking, you won't have that. When Christ said we should work out our salvation with fear and trembling, animals truly do tremble when a lion is face to face. So it's like I'm seeing all the dots connected while Christ is warning people like, look, you better work out your salvation with fear and trembling because I'm coming back as a lion. And it's not the play pet lion. He's back with vengeance. And I'm like, I don't want to be on that other side. I don't want to be on the end. If I've seen what a demon looks like, aged through time and wore out, and I don't want to go toe-to-toe with them, I definitely don't want to go toe-to-toe with the Father. And sister, I'm so sorry for dragging.
You're fine. No, this was a great, thank you for sharing your amazing story. And I'm just so happy to be talking with you right now. And one thing I learned from your story is that we shouldn't give up on anybody, you know, doesn't matter what anyone's going through, don't give up on them. And I just thank you so much, and I thank God for you, and that you're doing well, and that you're healed. And I hope you and your family connect again, and you get to see your kids,
Yeah, definitely.
everything. But yeah,
Nah,
thank you so
I
much.
appreciate you. And I was humble. I was humbled by you asking me, you know.
Yeah,
Like I
yeah.
said, since Josh, the past 4 years since Josh been wilding out, Josh ain't really been active. You know. But
Yeah.
and it's amazing that you say that, because that's what I realized another jewel of my life has been, is that if God can save me, he can save anybody. And then
Mm,
I'm reminded of that verse where he says he chooses the foolish things of the world to
mm,
on the wise. I was
yeah,
the king of the world.
yeah,
That little bad kid locked up most of his life,
yeah.
being in, you know, and maybe you can cut this in like half if you
I
want.
know, yeah. I'm gonna try to edit it. Yeah, edit it out.
You know. And if and like I say, if you could, you know, if like I say, send me the whole thing if you could, or if you cut it
Sure,
in half, send it out to me,
sure.
and I'm gonna promote your channel and share.
Yeah,
And like I
thank
say,
you.
'cause I appreciate the love and honor, and because that's you're living the gospel. Because
Mm,
I told someone, if a righteous man falls 7 times, why are we surprised if he falls twice or two or three? If God
mm,
said the righteous man falls 7 times, yet still gets back up.
mm. Wow.
Why are we quick to wash our hands if he falls twice? Well, that's twice he started back drinking. Well, you know, it's 4 times he smoked cigarettes and told me he's gonna quit. You know, I'm like, why
Yeah.
are we quick to, you know, if the Bible keeps saying otherwise? But and that's why I say people, brothers and sisters like yourself, truly live the gospel. And that's why I started back teaching, and motivates me and inspires me to keep teaching. Y'all help keep my love for people here.
Mm,
Because
mm-hmm,
like I said, I had a hate for people.
mm.
Y'all help keep a love for people and say everybody's not the same, Josh. Like, gotta keep a clean slate for everybody.
Right.
And you know, trust me, those are words. I don't know if you could tell how I said it. That's how you know when you
Mm-hmm.
deal with a person with a broke, you know, broke mind. I had to tell myself that before I go outside. All right, everybody gets a clean slate today. Whoever
Mm-hmm.
you do that to you, Josh, don't take your anger out on people, Josh. These my
Mm-hmm.
little pep talks. My
Right.
pep. I said,
Right.
but nah,
That's honest. That's honest.
yeah, and because I appreciate you, sis, because no telling how many other brothers and sisters are dealing with these things and going through
Mm-hmm.
them. And I don't mind sharing, because I know I'm not a coward in no way, and I
Mm-hmm.
feel certain things, and
Yeah.
you know, and God loves me, so it's like
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't matter if
That's
nobody
all
else.
that matters. Yeah. That's all
Exactly,
that matters.
that's
Yeah.
all that matters, and He's so beautiful, like the Father. I'm like I say, I'm about to get into His story, and the Father is so beautiful,
Mm-hmm.
and He often overlooked, you know, often overlooked. Drop a jewel, drop a moment jewel real quick, or
Mm-hmm.
I'll let you go.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. Just to show the beauty of the Father. I get
Yeah.
goosebumps when He showed me in Jeremiah, when it says in the sanctuary, where He says uh the sanctuary was the beginning. And I'm paraphrasing. I want to know the whole. I want to say it's Jeremiah 12:17 or 17:12. I always get those mixed up.
Mm-hmm.
It's German, but he says, in the beginning, that's right, in the beginning was thy sanctuary. And it hit me one time. I said, you know what? It shows the beauty of God. If the sanctuary, before God, we know that the sanctuary message is about
Mm-hmm.
salvation for mankind, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we know that God knows the beginning and the end. So hear what he's saying. If God knows the beginning and the end, and he says in Jeremiah, I believe 17:12 or 12:17, that in the beginning, which I mean he means the beginning of all things, all creations, was his sanctuary, which is
Mm-hmm.
also his house, then God is saying that before he created one galaxy, before he created one planet, he looked down the road and saw what was going to happen, and that he would have a people who would need a creation that would need salvation. So before he created anything in the universe,
Mm-hmm.
he thought about the people that he would lose.
Mm.
And he built the whole universe around
Wow.
them and their salvation to
Mm-hmm.
show them how special they were and how much he would miss. And it made, when the Holy Spirit showed this to me in thought, like I say, me and the Holy Spirit, we just talk. And so even as a person who creates things, it's like I couldn't see God creating, say, 5 million galaxies of different people and beings. And the whole time in the back of his mind, he's saying, well, soon we're going to have to form a plan of salvation for mankind. You know, because you can't have fun creating and have fun with people when you haven't, and you know that one of your creations is going to fall and rebel, and you haven't made the plan of salvation up for him yet. It's like that will be in the back of his mind. Well, I got to start making this plan of salvation pretty soon. You know what I'm saying? And so I can see him fortifying the plan. Okay, here's the plan of salvation. And that leaves stress on his shoulder. All right, now let's go create the universe. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I already got the plan of salvation in place. Now, let me go. And it also, and it says so many things. It says that the ones he lost is the center of the universe. The center.
Wow.
And it says that salvation is found in his house. His house. And it says, you know, when you look at Revelation 22, this shows his beauty. It shows how beautiful the Father is and how he thinks about it. Revelation 22, and it talks about how the tree, I think it's verse 2, and in the midst of the street of it, on either side of the river, was the tree of life, which bare 12 manner of fruits, right? All the heavenly beings, and we're talking in the New Jerusalem is the new sanctuary. It's going to be in his house. It's the sanctuary. You know, the sanctuary is the house of the Lord. Is it a coincidence for let's say he has 70 trillion different galaxies with 70 trillion different beings. All of them have to come eat from the tree of life once in a while.
Wow.
He could have had the tree of life set up on some other little planet where everybody could have just stopped on that planet. He even could have put one on each of their planets. No, but he loves each and every one of his creations so much. He put it in his house, in the New Jerusalem, right in front of his door, to where he can just peek out and watch every single being he's ever created come to his house to rejuvenate.
Wow.
No, that way he can see and talk to and embrace every being that he's ever created. They have to come back to his house to get one of the piece of the tree of life. And that's when the Holy Spirit showed me that. I broke down too, because I said, man, if that doesn't show how loving he is, that he would put the one thing that everybody in the universe has to eat on a regular basis to rejuvenate, he puts it right in front of, I could see it in the middle of his yard, in the middle of the, you know what I'm saying? Everybody who comes he has to see, he gets to see each one of his creations and spend times with them and things whenever they want to rejuvenate. So that's what I'm about to get into in this about the Father.
That sounds amazing. That sounds really interesting. I can't wait to watch it.
No, I appreciate it. I appreciate you bearing with me and giving this time to listen.
Yeah, it was great listening to you. Yeah, I'm just gonna end this here because we've been on here long enough.
Yeah, no doubt.
And I'm gonna edit it as well.